morning or good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, June 12th, 2018.
So, all you Wendell sycophants who are just, gnashing your teeth and wailing right now, he might be here for the next 2 episodes this week. He's assured us that will not be a problem, but he is operating on Wendell time. And when it comes to estimating arrivals and the time it takes to travel,
it's not good. Well,
yeah.
It's also, what about the jet lag? He's going to be jet lagged. He's going to come back tomorrow, which is Monday.
If he's conscious and he has a chance to be in front of this camera, he will drag himself in here. I guarantee you that. So I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about him not actually being able to make it on
physically
time.
Be here. He might not be here mentally.
We'll see. We'll find out. I'm sure the enthusiasm of telling us all about Computex, because we know he likes to do that. We'll get him through it.
You guys can do it. Do a little game for me next time. I don't know. Wendell might hear this first, but see how many times he mentions Taipei in the next 2 episodes. Do a counter, a ding ding every time.
But don't do it a drinking game. Good Lord.
Yeah. Don't. As we saw last time, don't do drinking games.
Well, for that though, that would be dangerous. Yeah. So this week we're doing government news and a little bit of social media, which once again, social media has turned out to be Facebook news. So many Facebook stories.
I'm so tired of Facebook stories.
But you're never going to be rid of Facebook stories because they just keep screwing up.
Last year it was all hardware stories. We just had nothing but hardware to do all year, and this year it's all Facebook.
We have a decent crop of hardware, but we'll wait for Wendell to get back on that.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to be like, I saw that's a Computex.
Well, we've probably covered some of it in some of the videos already. So,
but the best story this week, the story with the most irony this week, comes out of Europe, and it's about the GDPR.
Brussels says new GDPR law doesn't apply to the EU after embarrassing leak on website. That's the EU website, if it wasn't clear.
Yeah, so you've been getting those notifications. You get all those emails, and everybody's saying, "Oh, May 25th, after this date, you leak, you're in trouble."
We've updated our privacy policy.
Yeah, we did, and we updated ours. And immediately after that, someone found a leak on the EU website. So they're going to be in trouble, right? Well, no, they're not.
Because reasons.
Why not? Literally, their response is legal reasons.
I like that it's so vague, just legal reasons.
They should have said, and stuff after that. Legal reasons and stuff.
Don't worry, you're a pretty little head about it. We're not in trouble.
So if you were a big supporter of the GDPR, you thought this was, this is good. The government, they're doing a good job. Thank God for the EU, they're protecting us. Well, are they really? Because if it doesn't apply to them, then why not?
Well, they told you, legal reasons.
Yeah, but I don't quite buy that.
It's complicated. You don't.
I'm one of those horrible dissidents that should be jailed because I like to question that kind of thing. Well, not to be outdone, in the good old US of A, we have our government agencies that don't like to be questioned as well.
FCC emails show agency spread lies to bolster Dubious DDoS attack claims. So they're claiming they got DDoSed. There's almost no evidence to support that, and it gets worse from there.
Yeah, this is in response to the big John Oliver attack. So John Oliver did an expose, and all the normies found out about what the FCC was up to with the whole net neutrality thing. And
the normies.
We didn't mention that. It's still flickering. We tried to fix it.
Oh, yeah.
I have a feeling that it's just crappy Linux display drivers. Lower resolution images are a little better. So we went with this generic test pattern, and that was okay for a while.
But it's still, there it goes.
Maybe it's getting warm now. But it's still flickering a little bit.
It's hard to say.
Some people don't like that, but...
it's a little bit... it's actually quite a bit distracting, but...
You're mostly in front of it this week, though, so...
Yeah,
seems to be effective.
We should have put Stacy in front of it.
I don't think it's safe to move her.
No.
So the FCC, they got this big influx of people because, the normies, they found out about it and they went in to express themselves. The website went down. They claimed it was a DDoS.
I don't think they know what that word means.
A trove of evidence came out later from various security experts and so forth that showed that probably wasn't a DDoS. And now we have internal emails it wasn't freedom of information, but some freedom of information type rules. Somebody got a hold of internal emails. Now, they redacted every single email from internal FCC communication. If it was from fcc.gov to fcc.gov, they redacted it. But probably just because they missed it. One from the IT guy at the FCC to the Wall Street Journal was not redacted. And he made the claim that this was a DDoS for sure, just like the one in 2014, because this happened once in 2014 as well under Wheeler. But there's no record of that ever happening in 2014. No one reported it. And so they're claiming it's like, oh, it totally happened. We just didn't tell anybody.
You know, as you do to cover yourself.
Seems incredibly unlikely. They will not admit that they lied about it, but it seems almost a certainty that they lied about it now. And there was no DDoS, and it was in fact just the bad IT and the hatred of the Americans for the net neutrality policy that led to their takedown.
Who would hate it though? Who would swarm a website like that to express disapproval of such a great policy?
It is, maybe that's a mystery that we'll find out later with more investigation. There are a couple of senators who have already latched onto this. The great thing about stories like this is they're so popular and so visible that the senators can get easy points by going after them.
Yeah.
So hopefully we learn more.
I'm hard on crime. I'm hard on digital delinquency.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
As we'll see later, they put through some bills where they know they can't succeed, but it's just for points. You know, it's like, there's no chance this will work. And imagine if you're one of the drones that's typing that bill up. You know, like you're doing work. Do you think they have any idea that they're slaving away writing these 35,000 page documents?
I'm sure they're reading it as they type it, and it's like, what does this even mean? That's what I would be thinking. But
well, we can't go through a week without talking about Facebook. And we also can't go through a week without talking about Tesla. We used to say a lot of good things about Tesla. Everybody was excited and everybody was in their favor. But recently, the worm has turned.
The worm has turned. More bad news. Autopilot steered Tesla car toward traffic barrier before deadly crash. This was a case, was it a young Asian man?
California.
In California. He was driving and was smashed into a barrier, passed away, unfortunately. And they did an investigation, and Autopilot, unfortunately, was on.
It was on, and the car was accelerating, which...
like 5 miles, which, I mean, still, but it's still an acceleration.
But to go from 65 to 70, although Teslas, they're really high performance in terms of acceleration because they don't have a transmission. But it seemed like he was following another car, and the Tesla has the auto follow.
Yeah.
And then that car took the exit, and Tesla missed the fact that they were on an exit, and it was like, oh, there's no car in front of me anymore. Let's accelerate to the... And he had his cruise control set at 70, or 75 maybe, and it just right into that barrier. So this is the NTSB. So this is, they've investigated, and they've pulled out the black box, and they've figured this out. So really bad news for Tesla.
More bad news for Tesla.
Although, in their defense, he did have his hands off the wheel, but only for 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's not... I mean... Well, we say only for 15 seconds, but when you think about it, as someone who drives a non-self-driving car, like 15 seconds is kind of a long time to have your hands off.
The math professors in the audience who write those horrible word questions like, a car traveling at 60 miles an hour accelerates to 70 miles an hour in 15 seconds.
Flashbacks.
Yeah. That is a long time when you're traveling at between 65 and 70 miles an hour. That's a very long time not to touch the wheel, but it's autopilot, right?
Still sad, but...
Yeah. Also, the barrier was broken. They uncovered that those barriers are filled with water, I think. And someone had hit it previously, and they just didn't fix it. So if it had been fixed, it probably would have saved his life.
Oh, wow.
So there's the second lawsuit that young man's family is going to have. One against California, one against Tesla. I almost called him Facebook.
I didn't catch that part of the story, and that makes me more sad for them.
Well, they talked about that. I don't think it was in that story, but the previous ones, they talked about the divider being broken. And what would you say is the primary driving power of the internet? At one point, it was porn. Maybe it still is. Cats had it for a while, but right now, what do you think is number one? Memes.
Memes, as my cousin says.
They're important, and they're at risk.
Copyright law could put an end to memes. This is the part of the show where we play In the Arms of the Angels for 5 cents a day.
Except we'll get content ID.
We get content ID and we can't play it because it's copyrighted. But
Do you think
play it in your head right now.
You think people would pay 5 cents a day to save memes?
I will. They brighten my day so much.
They are entertaining and they're low effort. You don't have to have. I've heard them called cartoons for people with no artistic talent, and that's a pretty good description.
I saw that in a meme.
Yeah.
On Imager.
So this is about the EU, the new copyright filter that comes along with the link tax. Talked about that last week, and I'm sure you've read about it. But the idea here is that memes, which are so often stills from a movie or some other copyright or
franchise,
a cartoon where they've sloppily replaced the speech bubbles or something like that, usually a copyright work is involved. And a filter would have no way of knowing that your Lord of the Ring memes, for example. How many of those do you have on a folder on your desktop?
I would say 0, but I do have some favorites that I've saved over the years.
So the filter would have no idea. It wouldn't be able to discriminate against actual, hey, you're stealing Lord of the Rings content and a meme. And the filters would probably err on the side of caution. And the memes as we know them could be destroyed if this is allowed to take root. Could that get through the filter?
We're going to get content ID because my beautiful singing voice sounds just like that lady.
That was pitch perfect. Yeah,
it was,
with Sarah McLachlan. So you put us in danger. And you know who else is in danger? The WannaCry hero.
More federal. Look at his picture. Scroll on down there.
He's not a beautiful man.
He looks like a criminal. This man should be behind bars, clearly.
I don't think prison will not be kind to him.
Oh, no.
No. Certainly not.
Oh.
But we shouldn't say these terrible things about him because he's already going through enough. He hasn't been able to go home to, I think
Britain,
he lives in Great Britain somewhere. Ever since I think it was DEF CON, the Las Vegas, security convention where he was arrested. He's had to stay in California, and he's going through this trial, and now more charges. And these charges stem from, they believe that he created some kind of previous malware, and apparently they interrogated him, and he didn't quite understand the whole right to remain silent thing, and he was scared and afraid, and he was about to get on a plane, and he admitted to whatever they asked him.
Oh.
And so now they're using that as more proof, and I don't like his chances.
I wouldn't bet on him.
Yeah, he's pretty much got the full press of the FBI against him, and I don't think he really understands. He
probably understands now the sort of quote-unquote danger he's in,
but I also think he might be a little bit guilty. I think he might have written some of this stuff.
He may have, but we don't know that, and likely they don't either. Hopefully he didn't admit to it, but
they claim and there's another guy involved who was sort of the co-creator, or maybe the guy that was trying to sell it, and that guy has dimed him out for a lighter sentence. Yeah, snitches, don't do it.
They get stitches.
Don't snitch. Well, we can't talk about criminals without talking about the United States government.
Another flawless segue. U.S. government mulls snatching back full control of the internet's domain name and IP address admin.
I want to say that I called for this maybe 2-3 weeks ago. It's time to bring it home because they don't know what they're doing with it. They can't be trusted. They're passing these ridiculous laws.
Well, give it time. U.S. will catch up, but...
So what brought this into the forefront was the U.S. basically put out this report. And, they put it in writing. They were like, should we take it back? Does it belong here? And they probably don't have the legal means to do that, really. But just saying it is
inflammatory.
It's a real slap in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing that set it off though is the whois. Under GDPR, whois is not quite legal, but whois is.
That's what everyone uses to look up domain information.
I don't think you're really leaking information through whois. It's
no.
If you're going to register a domain, there are ways to hide it. Of course, you can pay that whole fee, the little fee, and they'll hide the information for you and take your phone calls. But ICANN really fumbled it They really got it wrong, and they seem to be toothless when it comes to standing up against the regulators. So they're just saying, you know what, let's take it back. I'm for it. I don't think it'll happen, but
This is just someone trying to get points again.
Well, I think it's more in line of just like they wanted to slap somebody. They're like, stop your bitching with this GDPR stuff, get with it. But it's funny that you say somebody trying to get points, because the next story is 1,000% someone trying to get points.
Oh, this is a terrible story. I read through this whole thing. They're passing a cyberbullying bill in New York, but they kind of failed to even define what cyberbullying actually is, which seems like that would be a fairly large oversight, considering you can go to, jail for up to a year?
Yeah.
That seems, I'd like to know what I'm being accused of.
It is, it's a misdemeanor. And the thing that really sort of showcases what you're talking about is a previous version of this was attempted in maybe just in Albany, New York, in a lower court. And they did define,
and it was very well defined, I thought. I read through it. It's like 5 or 6 points.
A good definition of cyberbullying did not pass. So they had to know that if there was case law that said that was not enough, that you couldn't just... Because this is a free speech issue, right? I mean, who gets to decide whether or not I'm cyberbullying somebody? Because in today's climate, as we'll see later, the poop emoji can be interpreted as cyberbullying.
I've never felt more offended than when I see that smug little bitch's face looking at me.
The water gun? Forget it.
I forgot about that story.
So the court very correctly, in my opinion, said, we can't just arbitrarily set a line here. There's too much context, and we don't know that somebody is cyberbullying. They might interpret it that way, and the person didn't mean it that way. There's no tone in text, that kind of thing. So clearly, these legislators did this for the headline. They knew it had zero chance.
But man, it looks good when you're scrolling through your Google News feed.
Oh, it looks fantastic. Well, I do not heart surveillance. Do you heart surveillance?
There's a long pause there, which tells me you were searching. There was you were looking for something there, and that's kind of weak, but I'll take it because I can't come up with segues very well.
Well, I was going to say, do you know who does heart surveillance?
The U.S. government?
The Department of Homeland Security, to be specific.
HART, Homeland Security, massive new database. This will include face recognition DNA in people's non-obvious relationships.
No one knows what non-obvious. So that's the first question.
That's the first question that immediately comes up is, what does that mean? I would think that would be people like you went to high school with, or what if it's like the guy you say hello to when you buy your cigarettes every day? What
if he's in ISIS?
He might be, but it's a non-obvious relationship. It's not. You never get that deep when you're buying your milk and cigarettes from this guy,
Milk and cigarettes? Is that a duo that you usually purchase together?
Often. I would actually buy milk from the gas station if they ever had it.
You know who always has the best dairy products? Cigarette stores. So let's itemize what DHS is going to capture here. Fingerprint, iris scan, DNA,
non-obvious relationships,
social media. There's so many.
There's a big list, yeah.
I don't know where it is.
He's scrolling through. You guys will see.
I should have prepared more for this. Okay, here we go. I'll read the whole thing. Biographic information, name, date of birth, physical descriptors, country of origin, government ID numbers, collected from officer encounters. So if you talk to a cop for any reason and the cop makes notes about it, goes in there. Relationship patterns, again, I don't know what relationship patterns is. And this is on top of, they list all the biometric stuff, but it's pretty much anything that can be tracked about you will be tracked in this massive database.
What if you don't have relationships? Is that the only way to be safe?
I would say, no, I think that puts you at the top of the list, right? Because you're
isolated.
You're a dangerous loner. Right. So look forward to that. I don't know if there's a good way to speak out against that. The EFF, they're the ones who have the article, and they're fighting against it, but I can't see anybody stopping it.
No.
Just don't use social media, I guess, is the one thing you can do there. You could burn off your fingertips.
Well, as reasonable people do, you know.
It's tough to get certain. I don't think they fingerprint you for your driver's license in this state.
No,
but I'm sure they'll start.
You know what else they'll start? Surveying you. That was weak.
I thought there was more.
Nope.
I thought there was more to that.
They added cameras in Chicago. That's the story. And then they're patting themselves on the back because it has reduced crime. This is like the Palantir program that we talked about
Similar
before.
to it. I don't know if it's Palantir exactly, but it's certainly the same kind of thing. It's an AI crime predictor system and cameras in
30,000 cameras.
it's like Metal Gear. You know, like everywhere there could be a camera, they've stuffed a camera. If you're not American, even if you are, you might not know that those crazy shooting numbers, you know, like the memes where
It's a gun-free zone or whatever.
well, no, it's like, you know, be American, wake up, get shot, drive to work, get shot.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have a lot of shootings, but those shootings are very, very specific places most of the time. I mean, there's shootings everywhere, but the big numbers are coming from Chicago and Baltimore and Detroit and Dallas. You know, these big, and it's usually gangs, you know, drug gangs, that kind of thing. It's like the Wild West in some of these places. So Trump, one of his campaign things is he was talking about sending the feds in to Chicago. Chicago's a big talking point for gun violence. And so their answer is pre-crime predictors and cameras everywhere.
Which there was a drop in crime, but it happened so quickly after the cameras were installed. There's some suspicion that it was something else that caused the drop.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, everyone's going to be like, oh no, it was totally us. Good job, guys. And they're all having cake in the conference room at Palantir right now.
Well, they're having cake to celebrate selling 30,000 cameras to the next city.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, we've all got that. License plate reading was the other thing they have. So they have pre-crime predictor, AI, cameras everywhere, and license plate readers. And they've got the gunshot detector microphones everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Which can, of course, pick up other things other than gunshots, like your conversations.
They would never do that, though. No worries.
Never. And I'm sure they'd never lie about it if they got caught. And they would never redact all those emails.
Never. That's not the U.S. government that exists now. Okay.
I think maybe the first good news story this week. Am I right about that?
Yeah, well, so 2 quantum computing bills are coming to Congress, and they're basically making room to start doing grants and research funding and stuff like that for quantum computing. And I was like, well, Ryan, that's great news. That's awesome. Like, that's a good news story, which is rare in our broadcast, unfortunately. And Ryan had a slightly darker take on this story.
Yeah, so when you talk about quantum computing, the uses of it so far are pretty specific because you're talking about, you know, it's not binary. It's ones and zeros and groups, and it's not. I'm not going to pretend to fully understand.
Oh yeah.
Quantum computing.
I watched a video on it once and I was lost like halfway
through. It's
through.
Theoretical physics, but I understand it well enough to know that it's useful for things like sequencing DNA because DNA works that way, but really useful cracking cryptography. And so the government might be the first to get their hands on the best anti-cryptography technology through quantum computing.
See, and I would have never. I was like, oh wow, look at them, you know, being proactive, investing in science. I was so naive.
You poor sweet summer
I
child.
pulled a Wendell. I was being a little sweet, and I was like, wow, that's great that they're doing that.
Maybe more good news depending on who you are, but I don't really care. But it is a big story.
Trump strikes deal with China's ZTE, imposes a $1 billion fine, and installs a compliance team in ZTE. That has to be there for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and this is another one where you were like, wow, $1 billion.
I was like, man, that could pay for my education.
You think?
That could pay for like 3 college students' education.
You think you could give Rue a nice life with $1 billion?
We could build our own dog park. We could bulldoze every other apartment in my complex.
Why don't you give us, real quick, why don't you give us a 10-second Rue update?
A 10-second. She is doing great. She went to the dog park yesterday. Because she has learned that she loves to swim in the lake, she now decides that she wants to tip over water bowls and try to dig them up.
We're out of time. Actually, are the rumors true that a certain overprotective fur mommy spent a non-trivial amount of money on a doggy life jacket that was never used because dogs can in fact swim?
She's 6 months old. She's a puppy. I spent. It was like $25, but still. It's a non-trivial amount of money on a life jacket that she was so excited to get in the water she didn't even put on. She just immediately started swimming.
Imagine how many Sarah McLachlan puppies that could have saved.
I might donate it. I'll send it to the Humane Society. I've got some old stuff that they can have. Anyway.
So yeah, ZTE, we went after him in the beginning, or Trump did. I'm not going to group myself in with him. But he said that, they broke the sanction for Iran and North Korea, but also unspoken behind the scenes is like, you're spying for China and we don't trust you. And then there was some back and forth and China was like, no, come on, let's be friends. And we've ended up with $1 billion fine. And
babe, that's just a text. Yeah, babe, no.
And a lot of people are, imagine this, they are criticizing Trump because he was not hardball enough with China on this one. And he gave in, as they see it.
I don't know. I guess what we talked about, I was thinking, that's a decent amount of money. Like, they have to do what we say, or not do what we say, but like help us out for 5 years. But I guess you could have been harder on them and then just completely crushed them so we owned the phone market, which is not a side I thought of. Yeah. But again, Ryan was like, that's what probably would have been better and more worthwhile than $1 billion.
Like, also what happens to that $1 billion?
It goes in his pocket, obviously.
I don't think it goes in Trump's pocket.
Directly. So he can build dog parks for his dogs.
He made him deliver it in $20 bills.
Singles. Craft singles, not single dollar bills.
That would be tough to eat. How do you think a craft single is worth less than $1?
He's screaming at Melania at the dinner table, eat your craft singles! And she's crying. And her son's crying. They're just eating craft singles for dinner every night.
I bet Melania doesn't eat a lot of cheese.
That's the darkest timeline this week.
So speaking of China and their meddling and their control, we've got a story about a leak that happened to them.
Oh, this is some crazy stuff. So this is a leak. Was it just an email? I can't remember.
It was a series of emails.
Okay. Yeah. So they're basically talking how they want to control their populace, how they want to manage their populace.
It was the rules for the people who are doing the censoring.
Yeah. And it's like, don't let people congregate. Don't let people like root for things. There was also a lot of rules about like, I guess it's not really streaming, but just like how you should conduct yourself on broadcasts of any sort.
But streaming is huge in China.
Yeah.
And not necessarily all video games either.
Just hanging out, eating streams. And
remember they had the teen moms who were...
Oh, yeah, and they were very upset about that. That's
so
the non-sex section.
One of the funny ones was you're not allowed to have a bed or a sofa in the background.
That seems...
Because that might lead to sex.
Imagining the person on the bed.
And you got to think, because in China they have smaller homes a lot of the times.
Yeah, because the urban areas are so packed.
Yeah, it's a huge population. So it's like you have to angle your camera so you can't maybe cover your bed up with something. I don't know.
Cardboard thing back there.
But what Tech Dirt, what the author of this article is pointing out, is that a lot of the rules are just keeping people from ever getting together on any topic. Even if you get together because of humor, they point out, like jokes. If you love the same memes, you try to keep that from happening, because what if the memers get together and it's like, hey, do you think the government's kind of going overboard? And it's like, oh yeah, I do think that. Oh, do we all think that? They don't want that to happen at
Basically, 4chan. But we were talking about this too. So like, I feel like China kind of has it backwards a little bit. They should go full United States and make it so everyone hates each other. Like, get everybody into groups, but then pit those groups against each other.
The identity politics has worked amazingly at turning us against one another. And I'll admit it.
It works.
Yeah, I do not like
you don't like
certain factions. Anyway. Well, but what I don't like is people telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And boy, is there a lot of that these days.
But yeah, that's let's just say if China wants to up their game, pro anti-democracy tip.
Despot.
Yeah. Make sure you can pit people against each other. Let them congregate, but then say, this person sucks, and then make those two groups fight.
I don't know if, the Asian cultures and China in particular are not as much about the individual.
Yeah,
So
I've
that
heard
might not work.
Maybe they're working with their culture as much as they can.
Yeah, I think probably they know what they're doing. Yeah. They might be evil, but they're effective.
Yeah. Well, so is the U.S. government, so...
You know who else is effective as a ruthless dictator? The president of Turkey.
Because he doesn't like Uber, and he says Uber is finished, or however you say it in Turkish.
Finished.
I don't think they say finished in Turkish. 'Cause that's English.
He might speak English. I don't know. But yeah, if you read into the story, the taxi drivers supported him in the last election, and he appreciated that. And I'm not going to say this is quid pro quo, but it might be. So now he is giving in to the taxi drivers. He says, why is Uber in Turkey? Because of Europe. But we're not Europe. We're our own thing. Even though I think he wants to be in the EU.
But in this case, we don't want to be like the EU. We want to support the taxi drivers who supported me.
So yeah, he's going to do something to get rid of Uber. The Uber drivers vow that they're going to keep providing those quality Uber services, even though they've been shot at and beaten, and now the government has turned against them. So
it's an intense occupational hazard.
That's a commitment. And here on The Guardian, there is a boob ad that we can't escape it. Oh, it will scroll.
It will scroll now. It's
Earlier,
Be Tempted.
Oh, it doesn't scroll for a little while till you get to the next ad. Oh, this is brilliant.
Listen, I don't care about the guard. Why do they have the logo on the right side? That's a weird UX pattern because most people, they've done eye tracking studies. Most people read the F pattern on websites.
But this is hilarious because you have to look at the bra until you get to the cat, and then you can scroll. That's ridiculous. Anyway, the Frenchies and their schools.
They don't allow mobile phones in schools anymore, which doesn't sound terrible, except it's kind of like, I mean, is that really necessary? Couldn't you just not have it in class? But
well, they're saying that, it promotes problems even when you're using it outside of class. And actually, it's not until September, but of course it's summertime.
So yeah, well, do they have summer breaks in other countries? I think
some
countries don't.
I don't spend any time thinking about the French, so I couldn't tell you.
If you're European or somewhere else, like, do you guys do a summer break between school?
I'm
the reason
sure
we do it here in the U.S. is for farming. But
well, I mean, they farmed. Believe it or not, they have agriculture.
I've heard a lot of places don't do it anymore. They stopped. Well, I mean, how many of us worked on farms now in the U.S.?
I think it's good,
I've helped garden before. But.
I think it helps create sort of a separation between and not burn out people. I think having that break is a good thing.
Yeah, I would like to have that as an adult.
Oh my God!
But they won't let it happen.
That would be fantastic.
Clients keep calling.
Yeah.
I tell them I'm on summer break and they don't care.
We should implement a summer break. Can you imagine how angry people would get if we did a summer break? So yeah, that's the problem is the next company, oh, it's raining.
Oh, I have my windows cracked.
You want to pause and deal with that?
No, they're barely cracked, just enough to
okay.
They'll probably be okay.
Go ahead and tweet a picture of that later on when you're dealing with it. Well, we did another YouTube story, didn't we? Didn't put this one with it. Actually, I think we've moved to the social media section.
Which is mostly Facebook, but we'll start with the YouTube story. Okay. YouTube can be liable for copyright infringing videos, court rules. Now,
this is a Austrian court. We should make that clear.
So, I mean, does it really even count? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
You have to commit when you do those kinds of jokes. You're like Wendell explaining the joke.
I am.
So the Austrians, they're saying they had a local news station who sued because some of their content went on YouTube, and they're saying it's not enough that there's the content ID system. It's not enough that there's the DMCA system. YouTube must be legally liable if copyright content comes up on their service. So if you take our newscast, put it on YouTube, we don't sue you, we sue YouTube. And this Vienna court has said, you are right.
A-okay. Which, I don't know, it just seems like they, if this was any other host, like a video host, if it was just some like DTube, which no one cares about, They wouldn't bother going after DTube, but because it's YouTube where they know there's a lot of money there.
Well, I think this is to help support the copyright filter. Because the only way that you can get in front of this is with the copyright filter.
Yeah.
So they're going to be arguing. They've already gotten a lot of pushback on the link tax and the copyright filter, more than they ever could have guessed. And now they have this embarrassing thing where they violated GDPR, and it's a bad time if you're a MEP. Do you know what a MEP is?
I don't know what a MEP is.
I learned it last week, but I'm trying to purge it from my mind because it's unimportant information. But anyway, this helps your argument. You're like, look at this. Look what this court said, and there's no way to do this. There's no way to support this court's ruling except for with copyright filters.
No.
So, sad times. And now we enter into
Facebook land.
like slowly stepping down into an in-ground pool filled with medical waste. We go into the Facebook stories.
I was thinking pudding, but medical waste is also good.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's fine. Washington sues Facebook and Google over failure to disclose political ad spending. Now, we had actually covered this before, and I actually asked them, I was like, are you sure this is an old story? But they have actually gone forward with a lawsuit at this point.
Yes. So the rule in Washington is if you buy a political ad, you must report who it was for, what candidate, how much they paid, and who paid for it. And you must retain. Wow, it's really raining.
It is really raining. It's hard to ignore.
You have to retain those records for at least 3 years. So some local newspaper or reporter of some magazine or something contacted Facebook and Google, and they were like, hey, give me those records because that's public information. Well, they don't have it. They weren't recording it. And so these guys went to the Washington government, and they were like, look what they did. And the government said, yes, you're right, and we are suing them.
That's it.
They'll settle. Here's my prediction.
Okay.
They will settle almost immediately, and it'll cost them $20 million, and they won't even miss it. It'll be,
And they'll do it again, probably.
to them, that's the equivalent of that $25 you spent on that life jacket that will never be used.
Listen, it might not be. It won't be used by Rue, but it'll be used by some dog.
She's going to grow out of it in 10 more minutes.
No, I got one that was big enough for when she's grown, but I don't think I'll ever use it, so I might just get rid of it.
Well, here's a question. As a fur mommy, how closely do you monitor Rue's online activities? Could she, in fact, be friends with police, undercover police, on Facebook?
Before I read this story, I would have said that's a 0% chance.
But you don't
But
know.
after reading this story, I don't know who she's friended on Facebook.
Do you let her pose with guns on Facebook?
Not anymore. Not after, we got a lot of backlash the first time that happened, so she doesn't get to do that anymore.
So this is a court. They were settling this idea of should an undercover cop who is pretending to be someone else on Facebook. We were talking about this earlier. I suspect he was pretending to be a pretty girl.
I didn't think, I was like, oh, did he just pretend to be like an old friend from high school?
I don't know.
Not just a pretty girl.
It wasn't disclosed, but this gentleman was on parole, and for 3 years. Now think about this. Think about the time invested in pretending to be. I imagine this guy was friending a lot of different.
Maybe that was his only assignment for 3 years.
Probation. Yeah, what a sad life. So this guy, for 3 years, pretended to be this guy's Facebook friend to observe him and make sure he wasn't violating his probation. And after he was caught posing with guns and cash, handling the guns was in fact a probation violation. He was locked right back up. Now, he appealed saying that that was a Fourth Amendment violation. So this court had to rule, is it okay for a cop to lie and pretend to be somebody they're not on Facebook? And they said it was okay. Here's the bigger question. Do you think Facebook would waive the real name policy for cops? Because he shouldn't be allowed to have that account, right?
You would think. But, Facebook wouldn't have a way to know if you made it realistic enough.
Well, they do now.
Yeah, they do now, but I'm sure that they won't be punished for that.
How many different accounts do you think that police department has?
I want to see the movie where that guy, the cop, is actually in love with the probation guy. And he's trying to rescue him. Like on one hand, during the day, he's like his probation officer. He's like, dude, you got it. You're better than this. And the guy's like, yes, I am. But then on Facebook, he's posting all this stuff. And then he's like, I have to take on an alter ego like Batman.
He-
But he's a pretty chick on Facebook.
He eventually goes transgender and starts sneaking in like actual pics of himself to try.
Man, you look just like my probation officer. And then long pause. Cop is typing, LOL.
That would be a great movie.
Someone start writing that screenplay. Give us royalties, or we'll sue you. Just like YouTube.
Under the new copyright.
Yeah.
We'll sue you in Vienna. Well, more about Facebook. We weren't kidding when we said it was a long block of Facebook. And this has to do with Facebook deciding what's the news.
They're making their own, it's not really like its own separate platform, but they're making their own news feed. Some of which is aggregated from other sources, but it's not clear who it is. They've not announced who any of those people are.
Yeah, they announced getting rid of the trending and replacing it with 80 news sources. We don't know who they are, but
International news
we can
sources.
assume that CNN, Fox, and ABC and all of these people are going to be involved because now they're creating video content for the watch section on Facebook. I don't use Facebook, so I assume the watch section is just a list of videos.
I don't know. I don't ever look under that tab, so.
I can't imagine that the Facebook news will be any different than, for example, the CNN regular
No,
news. I
no.
mean, is there special news that only Facebook people get? I doubt it.
I wonder if they'll have some sort of like system where they know that they can get, like they can advertise those videos. It's more
Oh,
more
yeah.
likely like a guaranteed eyes on it in a way that like just regular broadcast news wouldn't be.
Well, it's a symbiotic relationship for sure
Yeah.
because no one's watching the TV and people are on Facebook. So,
Oh, this video's promoted. Oh, it's about this news thing, and
yeah.
this is ABC coverage. Maybe I should get cable again, said no one.
I don't think it'll turn them to that.
No,
But it gives
that's drastic.
it gives companies like Fox a way to transition into maybe something a little
Digital.
more relevant.
Yeah.
Although I think it's going to have the same effect as the old people get on Facebook, where young people get on Facebook and they see news and commercials and they're just like, oh,
Oh, I didn't
Right.
come here for this.
Yeah.
I came here for memes.
let me go somewhere
I
else.
can't do that here though because I'm in Europe.
But Facebook is absolutely desperate for the young people. You know, last week there was a story about they lost something like 20% of their teens.
Oh yeah, I could. see
So what are they going to do to try to get them back?
that. FB.GG. That doesn't sound cringy at all, says the people from Level1 Techs. Gaming video hub to compete with Twitch. So YouTube also tried this with YouTube Gaming, and I found that YouTube Gaming was, I wouldn't say it's a colossal failure, but it's a,
I
no
think-
one goes to gaming.youtube.com.
I think
No.
commercially it is a decent failure.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody cared. But Facebook is following the same exact pattern. Actually, they are just shamelessly ripping off everything about Twitch. They're doing stars, which are bits
Yeah.
that you can buy, and they take a cut when you buy them. They're doing a Patreon style system where you can donate monthly. So they're taking everything about Twitch gaming and trying to put it on Facebook.
Which, do you really want your real name tied to? No.
You think it's going to be way easier to get swatted?
Yeah, like it seems like a bad idea for everyone involved.
That's definitely a bad idea. I do think you might be able to capture some of the normies that, but
Normally
I think
wouldn't have been into gaming.
I think young people probably already know about Twitch, right?
Yeah, most people I know do.
Yeah. So, well, most people you know are not necessarily normies.
Well, I have normie friends.
Are they really normie friends though?
They're fairly normie.
Do they know about Twitch because you're on Twitch?
No. No, none of my friends watched my stream.
'Cause it's garbage.
It's garbage. We played Stardew the other night. I don't know what we're going to play tonight, but if you're, or I guess by the time
won't-
this
yeah.
broadcasts, it won't matter.
They don't know. So yeah.
Speaking of verbal diarrhea,
Well, I was just going to wrap up that FB.GG is a terrible mistake, and no one's going to watch it. So don't get on there and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna become a esports legend." You're not.
I mean, you might, but probably
No.
not from FB.GG.
I guarantee it. You're not going to. But yes, as you were alluding,
Facebook trains its moderators to recognize when emojis violate social network sites' policies. And they have a whole flow chart of explaining what different emojis mean in certain contexts. This
Yeah.
includes the eggplant,
eggplant,
As-
peach.
which could be sexual in nature.
Vomit face.
Which could be cyberbullying.
Angry face.
I don't remember what that one was.
That one was cyberbullying as well.
Oh, of course.
Water gun, obviously.
Cyberbullying.
Knife. Those are just threats.
Those are just regular threats.
Violence.
Oh, of
can be
course.
violence.
What's the poop one?
Poop was cyberbullying.
Is it really cyberbullying?
It could be if it accompanies. It's impossible to read this. Motherboard is.
It's so small. The text is so tiny.
Let me see if the actual image is a little bit bigger. Pause with us.
As we
Oh
try
no!
to zoom.
Look how small that is.
It's so tiny. And we're
Come
so
on,
old.
motherboard. I can't read that. But anyway, you get the idea. Here they have bullying and mocking and that's condemnation, sexualized text, and so forth. And they've got all this. So if they feel that your text matches one of these categories
items, yeah.
and it has this emoji, then that might be hate speech. So watch yourself. Don't just be slinging those poop emojis around, willy-nilly.
We have emojis on our forum now. Maybe we can train them. This is hate speech.
I really, really, really wanted to do those Death to America emotes for Twitch. I know we couldn't get away
We
with
could
them.
never get away with that.
God, how hilarious
It
would
would
that
be hilarious, but also terrible,
If you
and we'd
could-
definitely get us banned.
Imagine if we did like a raid on another channel and everybody just showed up doing Death to America. Oh, man.
But they look so happy, and
They
if you don't
do.
speak Arabic, you wouldn't
They're
know what it
so
means.
innocent looking.
She's like, it's like a little lady in her little hijab, and she's like holding up a sign smiling. I'm like, oh, look at you. Oh, that's what your sign says.
That would be fantastic. We'd never get away with it. But that's sad. I bet we could have gotten away with it in like 95.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
When Twitch didn't exist.
Yeah,
We
right.
could have gotten away with it.
Well, we're still going strong on the Facebook train, and this time actually a trio of bad news stories for Facebook, especially considering what's happened in the recent past.
Facebook alerts 14 million to privacy bug that changed status composer to public.
Yeah, so a lot of places I think misreported this and made people think that they changed the status on posts retroactively. That was not the case, but you can have a default setting when you're creating a post. So your settings your post will default to private. Well, they screwed up and made everybody's post default to public. So you might not have paid attention. You thought you were making a private post, when in fact you're making a public post.
Where everyone can see it.
So you might have, for example, been posting yourself with cash and money and
guns.
guns. Yeah.
And your probation officer, who's cross-dressed as a man or as a woman, sitting at his laptop at his desk at his work, and he's like, "Not like this, Brian."
Why are you going to gender the officer? It could have been the other way around.
That would have been more interesting
That makes
if it was a female officer.
Make a note that when we do the movie, the offender is gay and the officer's a woman.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a tangled web we weave
That's
here
going
at
to be a
Level
good
1
movie.
Techs.
Yeah. So pro tip, if you're on Facebook, and of course we always have to say you shouldn't be on Facebook, but some of you you must do it. So double check that private public switch. I don't know, is it a checkbox or a...
There's a whole series of privacy settings. Yeah, I just updated all mine, but
Well, no, this is not the privacy setting on your account. This is when you're making the post.
making a post.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll
Pay
just a little
attention.
drop down.
Pay attention if you're going to post, nudes, or if you're going to cyberbully.
It's on Facebook.
If you're going to cyberbully, or why are Facebook nudes any worse than other nudes?
So I'm imagining all your family members use Facebook. It's like, ugh.
Well, this is your alt account that you only...
Oh, that you only post nudes on.
Right, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Everyone has one of those.
So, yeah. And now here comes the really, really bad news for Facebook. So we're not going to rehash the Cambridge Analytica stuff, but we will remind you that in the wake of Cambridge Analytica, the Zuck went to Capitol Hill to appear in front of the Senate, and he assured them
Never again.
exactly that the whole leaking your friend info and giving too much information to apps and things like that was done. It was a mistake, but it's never going to happen again. Well, guess what?
Well, here it is, what's it been, 2 weeks? And it's happened again.
Ongoing.
Ongoing.
I don't know if they've shut this down now. They probably have at this point, but while he was testifying, this was true. This was happening.
It's basically, if you're a certain company,
Device maker,
anything like that, you can get away with this.
Yeah, they were getting special permissions similar to those of Cambridge Analytica, so they could look at your friends list and they could look at all of your little hidden information and get a profile on you. And this has been going on ever since the days before there was a Facebook app. So BlackBerry is one that they've had their name dragged through the mud because they were in this list. And back when BlackBerry had their own devices and OS.
Back when people cared about BlackBerry.
Yeah, and I cannot remember the name of the company that makes BlackBerry. That's driving me crazy.
Is it not just BlackBerry?
No.
Google it, someone, and tell us.
Oh, we're going to get
our whole comments are...
Because nobody reads the comments before they answer those questions. Anyway, they did this because they wanted BlackBerry to be able to integrate Facebook into their OS. But the device makers loved it, obviously, because they like to mine data. And you got to think, companies like Google, when they were making tablets, of course Google loved to mine your Facebook data. So they continued to have this relationship with all the various device makers so that they could go deeper into your Facebook account than should be otherwise allowed, just like the app makers during the Cambridge Analytica days.
But it's totally different and okay this time.
Well, they've admitted that this also is not okay, but it also means that Zuckerberg probably lied to the Senate.
But did he mean to? Or
I don't think intention matters. Can
a robot have intentions?
Well, maybe that's a Supreme Court case. But it couldn't get any worse, right? I mean, okay, fine. The app makers had it and the device makers had it, but that's it, right? Nobody else.
Definitely
couldn't
not.
Get any worse.
Definitely not Nissan or any other company.
RBC or RBE, I think, is a bank. Was the other one they mentioned here, but yeah.
There's probably many more.
Certain companies, and we're not sure why these certain companies also have the same ability to go deep in your info and your contacts and your friends list and stuff like that.
Just sort through your life.
Yeah, basically.
And, it's basically the same thing. Was he lying?
He had to be. Well,
he had to know about one of these, surely.
The devices, okay, it makes a little bit of sense because they're try to make the devices better for Facebook. It kind of makes sense. Why does Nissan need my Facebook info?
Because they need to advertise cars to me, even though I don't buy cars very often.
That seems to be the only answer. So, again, not good news for Facebook. Gosh, I hate to see them put in this spot.
They're such a small indie company.
Such good people. Once again, I suspect this will be, just like the Washington State thing, this will be a settlement, and it might be $100 million. And again...
Just quietly.
About what it cost you, and when you scale it, about like buying that life jacket for Rue.
Is that going to be like a thing now where
we're going to use that as
the Rue life jacket?
That's the Rosetta Stone for how much corrupt companies have to pay. Is it 2 life jackets? Is it 5?
None of them will be used.
I jumped the gun on this story. I didn't mean to, but
here we are.
Now that we're here, let's take a look at this girl. She looks like she might make some bad decisions. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's hard to look glamorous in a mugshot.
It's tough.
I would throw out. Never having posed for one, but I mean, the camera doesn't really love me anyway. But
some people smile for them.
Yeah, that actually is a little more disturbing to me.
I don't know. I think it's a good move.
Because sometimes it's like, yeah, I killed the guy. I'm in here for manslaughter.
That's true. Like if your crimes are especially horrible, like if you're some crime against children and you're smiling,
yeah,
that's going to be a bad move. But if you're in for like public intoxication or
those are funny,
missing a court date, then you can. It's contextual, but sometimes I think you risk the smile. I don't know.
Let us know in the comments.
That's the way I would see it. But anyway, this woman, Safia Ro Yassin, did not smile.
I was blown away that this woman is from Missouri.
Well, I think based on that name, she's from Missouri by way of somewhere else.
Yeah. She was tweeting for ISIS and thought she was doxing police officers and whatnot.
Yes, she thought she was conspiring with ISIS Unfortunately for her, the entire time she was conspiring with
Law enforcement.
the FBI in particular. So the FBI was feeding her information. It's like, oh, you should make death threats to this military family. And she was like, you're right, I should. And then she did it. And you should dox these FBI agents. And she was like, yes, that sounds like a great idea. And she did. A long history of the FBI finding marginal people. Maybe is a nice way of saying that. Retarded would be the not nice way of saying it. Who maybe, don't have a good grasp of reality and just holding their hand through committing terrible crimes and then locking them up for 9 years to get a headline.
That's to put on their website,
Oh, yeah.
Tough on crime.
I guarantee this was an FBI press release. For sure.
Well, here it is on the news. On the Level 1 news. The only news that matters.
KansasCity.com.
Oh, you know what? Facebook didn't approach us as one of their news curators.
Well, I wonder why.
Don't.
It's not like we were saying anything bad about it.
I just thought about it, and I'm kind of offended.
Well, we kind of regurgitate the other people's news, so...
Yeah, we're not really.
We're not exactly breaking stories. Of course, neither are they. They're regurgitating what Reuters and AP...
No, they're regurgitating what's on Twitter now. Half of news posts are just Twitter posts.
Modern media they're like baby birds waiting for the mommy bird to vomit into their mouth. But we are like parasites inside the mouths of the baby birds, feeding on that vomit on a third tier.
And then vomiting in the baby's mouth. It's just a horrible cycle.
Our feces then go into the baby's mouths. I'm not sure how the analogy breaks down at that point.
It's just weird all the way down.
Luckily, that's the last story for this episode of the news. Tune in tomorrow, if only to find out, will Wendell make it?
Who knows? We don't.
And if he does make it, how many times will he mention the word Computex and or Type A?
Take a drink every time.
We'll see you then.
Bye.
I'm back.
Well, I'm back, said Sam at the end of Return of the King.
I was, like 30 seconds ago, it was like this.
30 seconds ago, we were going to do a sound test, and Wendell started doing the actual intro. And we were like, no, we gotta do a sound test first.
I'm asleep at my desk. You know why? Because I'm still 12 hours off, and it's totally sleep time. It's definitely sleep time.
Oh.
Don't listen to my emails.
They definitely heard that, because the mics are mounted to the desk.
Burr.
Sorry. Listen, we're actually recording this at a weird time. We're recording it during a workday, so emails don't stop during the workday.
But that was a bridesmaid text message, be honest.
No, I haven't looked at it, but I'm pretty sure it's someone emailing me.
What's Marty doing in the glass of Tide Pods?
I don't know.
Well, sometimes, you just need a little drink, a little pick-me-up in the middle of the day.
That's what I do. I bust open a pod.
I left my Star Trek action figures up here. My Lego Star Trek action figures, should say, so we could use them somehow. But you don't care. We just need to get on with the news.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't remember what today's news is.
The date.
We're starting with, what's the 13th, right?
Yeah.
Tuesday the 13th.
We're starting with security. We've got some science. We've got one crypto story. I can't remember what the other stuff is. Hardware, maybe? Yeah, hardware.
Oh, there's a lot of hardware. Because Computex.
That's what's in the story.
You have watched all of our Computex coverage, haven't you? Because if you haven't, you should feel bad. I mean, I know that no one cares, but you should totally watch our Computex coverage so we can go next year. Which I should also say thanks to ASRock and Fractal, because they sponsored the trip, and their support is very much appreciated in getting us to Computex to actually do stuff at Computex.
It's a lot easier on our wallet. We'll say that when we don't have to spend all of our money. We do use some of the money, but a lot of that's covered by them.
Yeah, almost. It's close. Well, no, I don't want to say
not quite 100%.
Yeah, but it was very, very appreciated. So, although this year Computex, like if you were going to skip a Computex, this year probably would have been the year to skip. But you don't know that because companies are cagey about announcing stuff and not announcing stuff, and
they want you to get hyped.
Yeah, they definitely do. And sometimes they'll mislead you, as we'll find out later in the program. But for now, you know who's not misleading you? Pure VPN.
That is not what this story is about.
Yeah, this is the wrong one.
VPN filter. Yeah, okay.
This is the malware that's been infecting routers the world over. And it turns out it's infecting a lot more than we thought.
Didn't they think it was just like the one or two brands, and now it's like pretty much all of them?
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much it. There's a table of routers here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Asus devices, D-Link, Huawei, Linksys, MikroTik. MikroTik's the surprising one because MikroTik is not really a consumer devices brand. Like, you don't run out to Walmart and buy the MikroTik. Netgear, QNAP, TP-Link. TP-Link is a really popular brand. Ubiquity. Ubiquity, again, that's sort of a commercial brand, so this is a little surprising. I guess just goes to show you should be running FreeBSD or Linux or OpenBSD or whatever on all of your core and edge firewalls because, Jesus Christ, why is this even a thing, people?
Upgrade your firmware is really the only way to go, but it can survive a lot of attempts to get rid of it, so you might just be screwed. Unfortunate.
That was the perfect intro for the other VPN story that's in here somewhere, but we'll get to it. It's fine. Speaking of things that you need to update or upgrade, your Supermicro server's firmware. Now, this is sort of... This firmware... So, the firmware vulnerability is like, it's not direct root control, but there are weaknesses in the firmware that will allow you to upgrade arbitrary files and also downgrade the firmware. And so, like, you could downgrade the firmware to a version of the firmware that's vulnerable, and then attack that remotely. So if the server itself is compromised, plus you have access to whatever port the management controller is running on, then you could be in bad shape.
Well, the problem is the CPU has access to certain parts of the firmware. So you don't need physical access. You don't need to get to the firmware through traditional means. If you can just take control of the CPU, then you can affect the firmware. But this probably isn't really a big deal for remote execution.
Yeah.
So you would need to get into it some other way. You've probably already got all the access you want at that point, but still, embarrassing.
Here's a hint. Don't put your IPMI on the public internet. For God's sakes, you should already know not to do that.
You know what else you should know not to do? Hard-coded passwords in your devices.
We're reporting on this one. Cisco has removed yet another. This is the fourth time that there's been a hard-coded account in Cisco. Now, I think this one is the least serious one that we've seen so far. This was an SNMP hard-coded community string. So the leak, the vulnerability here is on the SNMP Simple Network Management Protocol. So I don't think this is as severe as some of the other ones we reported, which was basically like, oh, here's a hard-coded password for remote root access. But this would give you access to sensitive information from the device.
Every device that communicates with this wide area device.
Yeah.
So, but they have already fixed it. If you upgrade, you're okay. But it's definitely embarrassing because Cisco, they found the last leak was from somebody else or from them. Like the first one was somebody else, and then Cisco was like, "Ooh, we better check," and they found a bunch and they released that. But then again, someone else found this one, so not good enough. Cisco security team.
I can't tell you how many meetings I've been sitting in on that basically amounted to, let's buy Cisco because nobody ever got fired for buying Cisco. And you see stuff like this, and then it's like, well, OpenBSD didn't have this problem. It's like you roll your own infrastructure with OpenBSD. This would not even have been a thing because audits.
People sitting in those meetings, though, they know the name Cisco. You're paying for the brand at that point.
92 million account DNLs for the DNA testing service MyHeritage.
DNLs? You're feeling it.
What now? What did I say?
You
Did I say it wrong?
said DNLs.
Details. Sorry.
Oh, you should have heard me stumbling over titles yesterday. So you're in the clear still, and you have an excuse.
It's like I'm definitely not the clear head.
The clear head. English hard.
This is an Israeli Ancestry.com clone, and they've been hacked, so all of your Ancestry details, they got the hashes for the passwords, but they did salt them, so they're not too worried about that. But the big worry here is things like, police using DNA. I don't know if this is one of the companies that stored the actual sequence or just stored the ancestry.
I think the article also said that there was no payment details that were leaked, that it was just all the other data,
Yeah.
literally everything else.
But on top of, because we saw how police are using the DNA websites to catch you if you do crimes, terrible, terrible idea to use one of these services. Please. It's not that important.
But I need to know if I'm purebred.
You are not from royalty. Just live with it.
We're investigating war crimes, and we have detected that you have German heritage. We need to ask you a few questions. Wait, it goes there immediately. The TSB admits 1,300 accounts hit by IT fraud meltdown. Oh, this was the one. Reading this story just made me infuriated because apparently all these people are like losing money out of their account, and there's over like 90,000 customer complaints or something crazy like that. There's some like this bank has no IT security at all, and people are freaking out.
They have like 5 million customers too.
Yeah,
like it's not a small bank.
They switched to a new IT system which had some sort of major flaw, and once that was discovered, it was just free for all. The fraudsters going in. And some people described, because of the volume of calls, they didn't like step up the service to meet that. So they described how they were on the phone waiting, for the IT fraud department and watching the money disappear out of their account. Wow. And no one ever picked up the phone. So the FCA, which is the regulatory agency that oversees this kind of thing, has there are rules about this. The amount of the fine is infinite. They can choose whatever amount they want for this much of a screw up. They can just destroy the company if they want to.
Well, there's a lot of people that were complaining in here that have lost their entire retirement account, and it's like they're just waiting on the bank to refund them some money or reimburse them, or I've destroyed our screws.
Wait a minute, the screws were not updated. Oh, never mind.
They were
the same
updated.
week. And they claim that they're going to guarantee all the money. But so far, a lot of people have reported that they've been offered 100 pounds as recompense for not having access to their money for weeks.
So, well, and that's fine for losing, your life savings. That's
Well, presumably
that.
they're going to get it back. But so far, none of them have access to that promised money. So
Yeah, this is
it's my money, and I need it now.
How could this happen? Banks are supposed to be some of the most secure. No, this is just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of, when you look at the bank-to-bank systems, those are some of the most insecure because they don't ever want to update them because they can't agree on anything. And those old systems are what they default to.
The old systems are held together by 5 toothpicks and an angry badger.
This is why my granny kept money in a freezer. The Great Depression lessons.
Ticketfly, 27 million accounts are compromised during malicious attacks. So if you've used Ticketfly, I've got some bad news for you.
Yeah, I don't think they got payment details necessarily. No. I think they did get password hashes.
They got names and email addresses and physical addresses, but no credit card information.
But yeah, if you've used Ticketfly, maybe don't.
I've never heard of Ticketfly. Usually it's Ticketmaster around here. Everyone uses.
I think Ticketfly is one of those like aftermarket sites, right? Like StubHub.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a Euro thing.
Now, we're only mentioning that because in a few weeks we want to report that some horrible draconian punishment has been exacted on Ticketfly. Meanwhile, still nothing has happened with Equifax.
Nothing will happen to them, so.
And here's the story that I thought we were leading with, but because I'm half asleep. Private internet access has a no logging claim, and once again, it's been proven true in court.
This is kind of a good story. It's a happy story.
This is a good one.
It's kind of the FBI still got their guy.
But they had like a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
But they did testify that they tried every way in the world, and we've talked about. I think you mentioned PureVPN.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one where once the subpoenas showed up, they were like, "Oh yeah, we do have those logs. Here you go. You can have them." But private internet access, they stood by their guns and they were like, "Listen, I can't give you what you want because we literally don't keep it."
All I have is an email address, and that could be anything.
And if you'd like to sign up for private internet access, you should go to level1text.com/support and use our affiliate link.
Full disclosure, sponsored.
And we used to have PureVPN, which I hope we removed.
It might still be there.
We were totally going to. We probably should.
We also had Tunnel Bear, but Tunnel Bear is no more because of McAfee.
I
mean, it's just
the VPN game. It's they just buy them up and destroy them.
Yeah. Well, we can't change the past, but at least in our PFSense video, like we had like setting up your PFSense, we covered 3 different VPN providers because odds are one of them will.
I think PIA was one of them.
Yeah, PIA was definitely one of them.
This really is like. They will give you an email address, but the only reason they use that email address is to mail you your credentials. and you can use a throwaway email if you want. Plus, you can sign up, the greatest thing about this, with gift cards.
And cryptocurrency.
So, well, cryptocurrency can be tracked back to you, but
Yeah,
a
that's
Walmart
true.
gift card paid with cash,
One of the pieces of evidence cited in here was a coffee shop near where the person lives, and that was just like another piece of corroborating evidence for
Well,
everything else.
he logged in from his dad's IP address.
Yeah.
So maybe he's smart enough to use the VPN, but not smart enough to always use the VPN.
Well, I mean, once again, it's a situation of if you're going to commit crime, don't use a VPN.
Pro criminal tip.
Don't commit
Well-
crime at all.
But if you're gonna commit crime, do use the VPN. I mean, it's just don't expect that to save you.
Yeah.
That's the one layer of the onion of crime committing security.
How do we? It's like pro criminal tip. Use at least 7 versions of private internet access.
One per day that you commit your crime. I don't know.
Yeah. Figure out a way to get an anonymous internet connection, which is a lot harder than you think. So this next one I think is hyperbole, but we'll cover it anyway. Experts warn it's only a matter of time before hackers hijack a plane mid-flight.
This originally ran in the Sun to give you an indication of that this might not be completely reputable, but
Well, I don't think New York Post is a paragon of, but what is these
Yeah.
days? But actually there are no details exactly of how this guy did it, but they've confirmed, the airline companies are like, yeah, we figured it out. I like that won't close. And
it'll pop up.
oh, it's killed the browser. But he used radio frequencies somehow to get, the plane was just parked,
Oh, that was a Homeland Security thing.
and he got in, and he checked his radio stuff through baggage, and they were like, oh, this is fine. He used that to gain some kind of access to the plane, but it's a complete top secret thing how that was done. So he's claiming that in doing that, you could risk all flights from now on. But like you say, maybe a little bit of a scare tactic here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at some point in the future, the free computer that's embedded in the bag of M&Ms could be used to compromise the plane.
I've never gotten a bag. What size bag of M&Ms do you have to get the free computer?
Well, I mean, I'm saying in the future they're going to go from RFID tags in the bag of M&Ms to like a full computer, and then somebody's going to hack that and use
Or
that to take over a
In the
plane.
plushies.
Yeah, it might be like 2133, but it'll happen eventually.
If they bought them at scale, they could maybe do original Raspberry Pis in like the community size bag, the 50-pound bag of M&Ms.
They could advertise that on there, and most people would be like, "Oh, Raspberry Pi flavored M&M, cool."
What has happened in the
I
browser?
don't know what's happened here.
This is not a story.
I'm somehow.
This is just a credit card
just
ad.
what? The struggle is real. The struggle is real.
Okay, wait. That's the
Okay.
airplane story.
Okay,
We're in the
so
right
the,
spot.
the next
There you
thing
go.
is
Yeah.
tech support scammers. Tech support scammers are using victims' webcams to secretly record testimonials for YouTube.
This is a level of dumb that this is good. This is a good reminder for me as a UX designer that, like, the levels of dumb, I've not even begun to see the bottom.
But
Like-
here's what I don't understand about this story. So they hacked these people, and by convincing them that it was the old like, oh, you've got a virus, you need to call this number, and the people who were not savvy enough to not call that number, they didn't know what that was. Somehow they made them read a testimonial, and they took over their webcam and recorded it, and then used that in YouTube videos. But
It's literally
If-
like 5 layers deep, though. Like, it's not just, call this number. It's like, call this number, install this thing,
yeah,
talk to this person, and then record a script.
well, they thought that it had been fixed because the non-existent virus message went away. But here's my problem with it. If they didn't know somebody was listening, why were they reading aloud to themselves when prompted to do so?
But yeah, it's just
The questions.
the user is always an idiot, and that terrifies me because I have to design stuff for people like that.
My takeaway from it was something like, because they were talking about how the scammers had a fake Adobe support webpage. So like
yeah.
the scam got started when somebody was having
Yeah.
trouble with some Adobe product and they called them. And so I was thinking, I was sitting there and I was reading that and I was like, did the scammers like install a pirated version of the Creative Suite or something? And it's like, that's what it's like. Oh, you mean I could get all the Creative Suite for like $9? And then I could see them sitting there saying to their webcam like, oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that.
No,
You're-
but see that the Adobe site, then took them to the "you're
Yeah.
infected" site.
Yeah,
And
it's literally like 5 layers of steps just to get to this.
I think the testimonial was that like the Mac Cure site. So, but again, maybe they thought they were just recording audio, but they were also recording video. But then it's just
Well, like they said, one of the guys was shirtless. I mean, like there's kids in the background in one, like someone else is in their bedroom, and it's like.
I like how all of us are like, we have to figure out exactly what sequence of steps led to this because this is so dumb.
It's more difficult to go through all these steps than just to run a regular virus scan. That's what I'm impressed by.
I want to know if there was a guy and he was instructed on his screen, it's like, read this aloud. And he's like, well,
that's kind of weird.
I don't see why, but okay, I'll do that.
All right, now it's time for hardware news.
You skipped story.
Did I skip story? What did I skip?
He's just excited to get to hardware. He's been chomping at the bit all week.
You scrolled errantly.
Oh, no.
And
now you're clicking rapidly.
This episode of the news can only be lightly edited too, so we have to like entertain you with like, juggling.
Well, I can tell them what this story is without the headline.
Okay.
This was the evil Chinese hackers. They've hacked
Is it China this week, not Russia?
It's China this week. They've hacked a Navy contractor. So that's usually the story these days. It's not that you hack the person themselves. You find a contractor who isn't good at security. So they got,
which is all of them.
They got 600 gigabytes of naval warfare and submarine data, which is everything about our new super secret missiles and submarine tactics. They've got everything.
Wait, is this the new submarine that runs Windows 2000? Because I thought that was the old submarine.
I'm not sure. They didn't mention the operating system, just that it has this new missile that can take down a ship with one hit, and it's super secret, and we're real proud of it. And now China has it.
Yay, China! Woo. Yeah. So, I think that it would be nice if we had some sort of National Institute of Standards and Technology that provided guidance on how to secure your systems properly and was not actually co-opted by the intelligence service, duping them into use shitty encryption algorithms like dual elliptic curve. Oh wait, that's a thing. We actually have that because dual elliptic curve. Guess who was pushing dual elliptic curve?
You, the viewer.
No.
The camera.
The camera.
Yeah. No, I was just saying. Like, see,
Stacy.
we told you so. Like, it's like we trusted them, and they were like, they betrayed us because they were not actually interested in making things more secure. They wanted to make things less secure. So, don't you think that the relationship of all of the password backdoors, I mean, that's a little too convenient, I think. Okay, I'm going full tinfoil hat here. Now it's time for hardware, I think. Probably.
Yes.
So, yeah. So
Your favorite part.
The Computex was last week, and we're still getting our Computex videos out the door this week. Woo! So please enjoy those. And we covered that in the beginning. So Tom's Hardware has this article. Intel, we forgot to mention the 28-core 5 gigahertz CPU demo was overclocked. I was sitting there, and I was going through the demo. And in the presentation, it was totally, this is a part, we're going to have it out by the end of the year. It's for gamers and enthusiasts, and it's going to be great. And then they sort of backpedaled on literally everything in the press release.
Scroll down and show the cooler.
The cooling unit is 1 horsepower. 1 horsepower. And also, this is a Xeon socket. This power delivery system is unlike anything else on any Xeon motherboard. Now, I tried to get video of this Wednesday morning, and Intel had pulled all of these demo systems Wednesday morning. And Wednesday afternoon they were back, but none of the systems had the crazy cooling system anymore, but they also wouldn't let you run any kind of benchmark or performance things or really anything to see if it was running at 5 gigahertz as they demoed in the press release. Like on stage, they were like, look, it's running at 5 gigahertz on all 28 cores. And it really was running at all 5 gigahertz on all 28 cores, but it took a 1 horsepower cooling system to do it.
Well, everyone has that, right? It's fine.
I think the cooling system draws way more power than even that CPU at that clock ever would.
Yeah.
So you're at least doubling, probably more like tripling your power consumption with this thing. They have since admitted that it was all sham.
They said we forgot to mention it.
Yeah.
We forgot to mention. We conveniently forgot to tell you that this doesn't actually work.
We spent the entire day hiding this cooling system, and Tom's Hardware mentions how loud it is. So they liken it to an old outdoor air conditioner system, like that level of noise. So they had to sound dampen somehow to keep that out of the mic. So They must have spent 70% of the time setting this up, dealing with the cooler, and yet they forgot to mention it.
Yeah. This is not. There's no way they forgot. And the whole setup actually looks like an ordinary tower computer, and they had drilled the bottom of the case or something to have the cooling lines go out of the computer in sort of a concealed way.
Into the floor, like into the stage.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
because it had to be far enough away that you couldn't hear it.
yeah. So everything came out on rollers, so it had to be part of like the rolly contraption. But when I saw that on stage, it was like, no, this is not a real thing. This is not a real thing at all.
The hardware world has taken the page out of the game world where it's like, let's show you footage of the game that has nothing to do with the game we're making. There's pre-rendered footage. Isn't this exciting? So now we're getting that with the processors.
We should also mention that the processor that's based on is a Xeon processor. So this is not like it's a new processor or a new process or a new product in development or anything like that. They literally just took one of the most expensive CPUs that they make.
$10,000.
Yeah, it's about a $10,000 Xeon, and overclocked the bejesus out of it. And I'll tell you right now, no data center on Earth, there is not a data center operator on planet Earth that is interested in this CPU, because the power delivery system on that motherboard was well over 1,000 watts. There is nobody in the data center that is interested in a server CPU that uses that much power in this day and age. The whole reason that there's Xeon like 2670 and 2680 V1, V2 CPUs on eBay by the thousands is because data centers have been shedding those CPUs, because even those CPUs use too much power. So, I mean, that should tell you something. So, the very next day, AMD had their press release. And AMD actually demoed a real processor that was running under pretty normal conditions, an air cooler, a tower air cooler. Now, that was like 5 pounds of metal. It was a substantial tower air cooler. But they demoed a 32-core Threadripper 2, which will ship this year. And this is not really super surprising, because the 32-core Threadripper 2 is basically EPYC, but in desktop configuration.
I think you have to admit that AMD won Computex.
Yeah.
Because they're really the only ones that announced anything of merit.
Yeah.
They've been winning a lot lately.
Yeah.
Seems like to me.
Yeah, it's they're probably not winning on the clock speed wars, because I mean, in terms of like single thread performance, they're not there yet. But in terms of like if you need 32 cores on the desktop, this is probably going to be amazing. And the 16-core Threadripper, if it's like two 2700s in one package, and you're going to get that 4.3 to 4.4, gigahertz single and dual core workload on Threadripper, that is going to be a substantial processor. I mean, that's what most people need in a workstation class system. Now, EPYC is still going to be really good. You might be thinking, I think Threadripper is going to eat into EPYC, but remember that Threadripper has half the memory channels, and it's a little different beast than EPYC. But that does make it interesting to speculate what's going to go on with EPYC. AMD also released 7nm Vega, so Nvidia did not release anything. Nvidia CEO, in fact, said it's going to be a long time before next-gen GeForce GPUs come out. But he's done that before. Like, he'll do that, and then somebody will come out with an amazing product, and then he'll be like, wow, we got something to do.
Well, it's like, why would they release anything right now when they're just making money hand over fist?
But what I really respect what Nvidia does here, because they have a history of not hyping it up. And this one day it's like, here it is, and you can go buy it. And that's the way all of it should be. All this bullshit where it's like, fake it and put it out early and to get everybody excited about it. No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Everybody should follow Nvidia when they do this kind of thing.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because during the AMD press event, the Vega 56 Nano was also released, which is from PowerColor. And so they had a demo of it on stage. But the game that they were playing with Vega 56 Nano was sort of glitching and stuttering in its effects. And I think the guy noticed it that was presenting it, and he's like, oh, so he switched to the video game that was like a FreeSync demo. But it is exactly the opposite of what you're saying, because it's like, oh my God, hype train, woo! And then NVIDIA's just like, no, let's just do this. And I got to see this on the show floor as well. This is Supermicro was showing me one of their NVIDIA like TensorFlow systems, and as configured, it was 10U on the rack mount and $100,000 base configuration.
Oh, I think we did a story about. Is that the V100
Yeah.
system? Yeah, we did a story about that one. I think it's $400,000 though. What they quoted.
Or
So very
yeah,
reasonable.
fully kitted out is 400 grand, but entry level is 100 grand. Like
Think how many houses with internet you could get around here, Ryan.
Zero.
yeah, you can't get it for less than 100K.
A nice house in the country with internet around here, there is no price. There's no price you can pay to get it.
Well, yeah, there's just not internet.
Ubisoft has said that cloud gaming is going to replace consoles after the next generation. And okay, so the way that the article explains it here is BS, but there is a way that they could pull that off.
Well, they're talking about using the Nvidia Shield Steam app type of deal, which
Not happening.
yeah, unlikely. But the real, even if we could do it, think about how horrible this would be in concert with net neutrality. Because Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, all the big names are going to have agreements with all the ISPs, and any competitor won't. So
The Peggles of the world can just screw off.
there would never be a competitor who could get into this game. And the other thing
game.
is software as a service.
Yeah.
Everything becomes software as a service under this. This is I mean, I'm not a big console guy, but good Lord, this is bad.
Yeah.
Bad for the world.
Yeah. Now, there is a way that this could happen, and it's more on the software development side. And I'll go off track a little bit here, but imagine that you have a game where when you start to play the game, it only streams the assets that you need to actually play the game on your local console from a remote system. Regardless of latency, if your internet connection, if your download speed is fast enough, if, for example, like when you go to load the first level of Dragon's Lair or whatever, and that's only like a gigabyte, your loading screen only loads the first gigabyte of data. And then while you're actually playing the game, it could be bringing in the rest of it. So you're quote-unquote streaming it off the internet, but really it's just a progressive download. And some Blizzard games, I think, do this. Like Overwatch will let you play it before it's totally done downloading.
But
And you just can't play on maps that it hasn't downloaded yet.
But that's not what they're talking about.
No.
What they're
No,
talking about
yeah.
is a much less powerful
Yeah.
terminal in your house.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do that way. But what you're describing, imagine how great a world it would be if the only way to get a complete ROM was to 100% a game.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be hilarious.
That would also take care of a lot of piracy.
Yeah. Well, people who wanted to 100% a game would be really richly rewarded for recording all those assets.
I don't know. I don't have a segue into this, but Microsoft has sunk its data center off Orkney. So this is a no humans allowed for 5 years data center that's just in the ocean. Because Microsoft thinks in the ocean is efficient in terms of power utilization and convenient in terms of space utilization.
Convenient.
Cooling is the big thing.
Cooling, yeah. Well, that's what I mean by power, but yeah.
So yeah, but the thing is, as the parts die, they won't be hauling it up and fixing them. They're just going to let them die.
Yeah.
So it's an experiment of, do we save enough on cooling to make up for the fact that as things die, we just have to let them die? And maybe if this works out, we will get more and more data centers that are just being dumped in the ocean.
Now,
That's crazy.
water, there's another aspect of this that I don't think the article talks about, and that is how many bit flips in memory are caused by like stray gamma radiation or cosmic radiation, because that's a thing, and water is a really good insulator from that. So I wonder if the number of bits flipped in memory will be less in this data center because it's surrounded by water.
Well, they do talk about, ironically, the moisture in the air is caused by humans, and this will have none of that. So the erosion in the parts will be almost non-existent, even though it's underwater.
It's going to be interesting to see the data that comes out of this in a few years.
I can't remember. Did the article mention where they're dumping it?
Orkney.
I like to imagine that they just dumped it at a beach. Like
No.
so, like you're swimming and you can like touch the data center.
Now,
and,
they
like,
chose
jump on
this
top of it.
town not just because I think it's like a small town. Nobody cares if you throw something in the ocean. But also, this town has completely renewable energy, and they have too much energy. And
Oh.
they're trying to find something to do with it. So Microsoft's like, we'll sell a little bit to us, and we'll put data
We'll
centers
sink a
here.
data center
Yeah.
off your coast.
That's so bizarre.
How cool is it going to be when we are reporting on the news headline where it's like Microsoft data center taken offline when a boat anchor impales the side of the capsule,
Idiot
ruining
inflatable canoe.
the entire data center.
I'll tell you how cool it's going to be. The temperature of the ocean cool.
Nothing can be as cool as this 3D printed house in the Netherlands. It doesn't completely look bizarre.
They look kind of like something from Star Wars, really.
I kind of like it. I like these kind of weird houses.
These are not actually the houses. This is an artist interpretation of what the houses will look like. But yeah, they're going to... And this is not the 3D print in place thing. They're going to print these at a local university and then take them out and assemble them. But they're going to be for rent. So you can
Oh, they're for rent? That's cool. Usually it's like, you could get this house, but it's, thousands of dollars. And
it's like lakefront property and real nice. I mean, assuming these houses work properly. Seems like a cool
that
thing.
seems like a big if.
Yeah. We're going to find out.
Are you one of the dozens of people that are still using Yahoo Messenger? I'm sorry, I've got some bad news for you.
I was a little sad reading this article. Yahoo Messenger is being killed off. It's rapidly approaching, like a month from now.
Yeah, July 17. And then they're going to give you, I think, 6 months to download your contacts and your chat history. And then after that, nothing ever again.
Turns out the only people using Yahoo Messenger are bots and spammers.
As a kid, I used Yahoo Messenger. When I
Well,
was, like, in
everybody
middle school.
did. I mean,
Yeah.
it was the king at that time. They do have something called Yahoo Squirrel that's coming to replace it. There weren't a lot of details about Squirrel.
Oh, who is in charge? The asylum.
Is there a squirrel in charge of Yahoo? It's
There
hard to
could
say.
be. That would explain it, wouldn't it?
Things have gotten out of hand on Reddit again. Those gosh darn.
Were they
people
ever
on Reddit.
in hand on Reddit?
No.
The flight sim maker had threatened legal action over Reddit post discussing DRM. Tells Ars Technica there was never any intention to seek action.
Did you guys actually read the original posts from this person?
Yeah, I didn't really see what the big deal was.
Well,
The person's kind of condescending.
this
Well,
I mean, that's not a big deal.
the big deal is this is the same flight sim company. We did the story that put
The back door.
the password sniffer in there, and the idea was if they figured out you were a pirate somehow, they stole your password, which people weren't too happy about. So on the subreddit, they've released a new software that was putting files in some Windows folders, and some people were like, hey, wait a minute, what are these files? And this guy said, any discussion that says that we're using DRM that's like malicious is liable and will be acted upon. So
I don't know. A password sniffer seems pretty malicious to me.
well, that's
But it's being dumped in
they have
important folders.
That's like somebody getting out of prison for robbery and being like, any of you people calls me a thief, I'm going to sue you.
They also named it. I can't remember what the name of the file was, but it's something very similar to like an actual file Windows
Yeah,
uses.
it was definitely part of a DRM that tried to hide itself from the user.
I'm pretty sure the FBI is holding that WannaCry guy for less serious things than what this company has done with the password sniffer.
Well, and the posts from this guy too. He was like, I don't actually work with these guys. Like, I'm too generous to take a salary. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
ew.
Well, this is probably one of those situations where just one guy was off the leash. But it does seem like a terrible company, the way they try to do DRM.
Yeah.
Coinbase is in the news. Coinbase is acquiring a financial services firm to become an SEC-regulated broker-dealer. This one, I think I missed this story. So Coinbase, of course, they're one of the, legit Bitcoin traders that are available in the U.S. after pretty much everybody else has been shut down, all the old people.
I think they might be the only one that you can really have any kind of confidence in. But they play ball with the IRS, and that's not always great. So they're going to become a full-fledged trader with the SEC. They're going to be into securities too.
What could go wrong?
You're probably going to be able to trade stocks. Now, the really interesting thing about this story, they said they had plans to tokenize traditional securities. So like Google tokens based on the stock. I don't know exactly how that would work, but you presume it would use some kind of blockchain. It sounds kind of far-fetched, but I don't know. Maybe a new way to trade stocks.
Do you think we'll see Do you think we'll see the SEC adopt a blockchain type technology to stop high frequency traders? Because that would be neat.
I don't think the SEC has any interest in stopping high frequency trading.
But they should.
It would be real easy to do.
No one can solve this problem, though. What will we do?
It is impossible. It's an impossible to solve problem. Oh, this next story. This made me. This is another one of those stories that just made me more and more angry the more I read it.
Yeah.
Monsanto has been acquired by Bayer, the people that make aspirin, and among other things, a lot of drugs, as it turns out. And the Monsanto name is going away, but not the products of the legacy.
This is definitely a Blackwater move.
This is a marketing move. This is There's some
because
bad stuff associated with the name Monsanto, so
Some.
we're just gonna get rid of that name, but not change anything else.
yeah, you know that thing that's maybe killing us all slowly.
Don't worry about
Let's
that.
pretend that never happened. And Bayer, who doesn't love aspirin? Everybody loves aspirin.
That's what you take when
Your
you have a
liver
heart
doesn't.
attack.
Hell, baby aspirin. You got a heart patients, any kind of pain. It's the miracle drug. And let's just forget about all that other stuff. We did a story not long ago that the new AI robot-based agriculture is really threatening the agriculture spraying everything with poison business model. So Monsanto might have been in some trouble later on. That might have been part of why they're selling out.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if the technology is so cheap and ubiquitous, how is that not better than chemically controlling those kind of things?
Yeah, and you can use the seeds from year to year, and they're not. I didn't have the story. I just saw it today. 2 new studies are talking about how CRISPR might absolutely be leading to cancer, like
Wow.
100%. And I don't know if Monsanto uses that kind of gene manipulation, but they certainly modify those crops.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Modifying the crops through selective breeding is probably okay, but other things, other than that, I don't know if that's got a proven track
I'm not
record.
sure that's how they do the Roundup Ready stuff.
No, I
don't
don't
think.
tell. Our last story, the Mars rover. Remember the Mars rover? Because they was only supposed to work for 90 days, and it's on Sol 900 and some. It's been there a while.
Well, this one's Curiosity. That's not the newest one, is it?
I think it is.
Is it? Okay.
They found organic matter in an ancient lake bed. So Curiosity digs up carbon compounds that could be food for life in sediments that formed 3 billion years ago. So this is sort of another. They talk a little bit about methane too, because the interesting thing about methane is that we don't know. I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm given to understand that methane normally breaks down. Methane is not a gas that sticks around naturally for a long time. It'll just chemically decompose. And there's more methane on Mars than can be accounted for through chemical processes, which suggests there's some type of organic process. So,
What you're telling me, I think, I'm reading between the lines. You're saying there's a subterranean race on Mars, and
Of
one of
space
them
cows.
came to the surface and dropped a sandwich one day and forgot to pick it up, and that's what we're finding here.
they were sending messages to Tesla the whole time.
That would explain some of his tweets. His slow descent into madness.
That's Musk.
Now,
Oh, yeah.
Organic matter alone does not guarantee that there was ever life on Mars. Could have been some sort of, extraterrestrial, like a comet or something, carrying it.
Yeah.
But if you're a life on Mars kind of person, you got to be excited about this one.
That is kind of crazy that we found amino acids in comets. That's another thing that's why would there be amino acids in comets? That's sort of interesting.
There's a giant God machine launching amino acid laced comets at the center of the universe, and whenever it hits an Earth-like, you get life.
One god's amino acid life-giving comet is another god's relativistic kill vehicle.
That's basically their waste product.
God poop. Well, there goes our monetization. If we hadn't managed to, I don't know. Check out our Computex coverage. There's a lot more hardware news in the Computex coverage. I don't know what to tell you.
And tomorrow, I think business and robots and a healthy nonsense
We have a
section.
very
this
healthy
month.
nonsense
The
section.
nonsense section is a little, and it should be even more nonsensical with my sleep deprivedness. So be sure to watch. All right. Well, good news. You've made it to Friday.
We didn't see what day it was. What day of the month?
Oh yeah, right.
What day is it?
16th? 15th.
It's April 15th. It's not even April.
Not
It's
April.
June.
That's June.
June.
The sleep deprivation is real. It's June 15th. It's Friday. Nonsense Day.
Yay.
But before we get to the nonsense, we need to talk about how much time people spend watching YouTube versus watching Netflix. Wait, that's the same. I mean, watching TV.
Not the same.
You are.
And actually,
off
none
the
of that
rails.
is correct. It's how much time people spend on the internet versus watching TV.
Well, I mean, it kind of was related.
Well, you don't have to
You're
be
getting
watching
there.
video
I was shocked at the number, though. 170 minutes.
that's the average per day.
Yeah.
However, that is worldwide, and here in the U.S., it turns out we still watch more TV.
I could see that with older
It's a little bit
people,
more.
like
By
my mom.
2020, we probably won't.
So, would you add those numbers together? Like, so people are spending 4 hours a day between the two things basically right now?
I don't know if that's how this chart works. I think it might be as a pool of total time. I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me if we did both. I don't really watch TV, but
I don't think you're really.
if I'm watching TV shows on YouTube, does that count?
Well, some people.
Oh, that's a good point.
Some people, like, you remember the writer's strike, which has been several years ago now. A lot of the writers, at least on the shows that are canceled, complain that they're encouraged by the networks to write shows that are dumber because people are only half paying attention to them because they're doing stuff online as well. Don't know if there's any truth to that.
But why would that help?
Well, if
To make it worse.
if you make the show dumber, then people,
Easier to follow.
Yeah, people don't have to pay attention to it. And that seems to be true because, I mean, you look at the really popular stuff on YouTube and it's not cerebral at all.
So you're saying
Are you implying that we're not popular?
if someone were to
Are you implying we're cerebral?
are you saying that if someone were to like spend a lot of money and actually make some really good television and take this amazingly complex fantasy series and make it real and gritty, that some people would just wiki it and watch YouTube clips and not even get anything out of the experience?
I don't think anyone would do that except for me. I get the experience of reading it like a history book, which I appreciate.
No.
I might have queued up some Westworld for my trip and I didn't have an episode and it was like, you know what? The Wikipedia article on this episode will be fine.
It
I'll just use
works
my
out, it's
imagination to
fine.
fill in the gaps.
Wow.
Well, and like with Game of Thrones and fantasy literature, often it's sort of written like it's multiple historical perspectives. So when you read all these Wikipedia articles, it's like you're getting that same experience just in a written form.
The books are literally like each chapter is
Yeah,
someone's
it's a different
name.
person.
Anyway.
Do you think that, speaking of things where it's like you get the same experience versus the other thing, do you think that's going to be true of GitHub after the Microsoft acquisition? Because you guys haven't talked about this right yet.
Not
No,
really.
we waited for the.
Yeah, so Microsoft is buying GitHub for $7.5 billion in stock. So I'm of two minds about this. The first one is GitHub was hemorrhaging money, from what I understand. So that gravy train with biscuit wheels had to come to an end sooner or later. And on the other side is no, please no.
Well, there's already been the controversy about the file system.
Yeah, GTVS. Well, I don't or the GNOME virtual file system, GVFS, versus the Git virtual file system, which is the thing Microsoft added.
But they're sticking with it. They're
Yeah.
not changing it.
It seems like it's just two disagreeable people arguing about nothing.
Well,
Well, you
yeah,
just summed up most of the work in software development.
certainly, yeah. I think everything in the Linux community can be summed up by that. But the other thing is, I think I saw, I don't remember if it was 7,000 or 17,000 projects went to GitLab the next day.
Yeah.
So some people have jumped ship already. And there are alternatives, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, GitLab. Okay, GitLab is cool and all, but what about GOGS? I think GOGS is where it's at. The Go Git server. I think GOGS is so much better than GitLab. Having to support GitLab makes me unhappy.
But I guess did you see the press release that Microsoft put out about this? And they were like, please just look at our recent efforts when it comes to open source. Recent being the key word.
Don't look at our long-standing history.
Yeah, anything past a year or so, just ignore all of that.
You mean like when they were threatening people with the patents on the FAT file system so nobody would implement FAT32? Like that wasn't that long ago.
So yeah, it's hard to trust them. That's like that DRM and the flight sim company. It's like, well, you'll have to excuse us not trusting you, considering that you just it's like the scorpion and the frog. This is kind of your nature, Microsoft, to destroy things like this. So
I don't think people realize how deep Microsoft is in open source communities already. I mean, Microsoft already has significant influence over like GCC and Clang and a lot of other projects that underpin the critical infrastructure of all things open source. Whether it's Linux or FreeBSD or anything, you need a working C compiler. Microsoft's involved at every level. Whether or not they're good, whether or not their intentions are good, I don't know. I mean, do you think we'd ever see Windows with open source componentry as like a critical thing?
I don't know. If they can move to a different kind of business model and still make all that money, maybe. But that seems unlikely.
You know, the company that surprises me the most that has been super hostile to open source is Apple. Apple did cups.
Is that surprising?
Well, I mean, Apple should be indifferent or apathetic, but they're actually hostile.
Apathetic, if you would.
Apathetic.
Well, I think that would mean a different kind of thing. But yeah, I don't see any conflict with Apple and hostile to open source.
Apple and hostile to literally everything.
Yeah. Because open source is kind of hipstery, you know?
A little bit, yeah.
And that's sort of Apple. Now, I'm not saying that your average Mac user is going to understand enough to go into the open source world, but I think there's that sort of like, hey, everybody, I'm a vegan. The Linux community has that as much as the Apple community. That's one thing they share.
Perhaps more so.
Yeah, and so I think maybe in that Venn diagram has quite a bit of, it's almost just a circle.
Just one.
A literal circle. Nearly a quarter of Tesla's Model 3 reservation deposits in the U.S. have supposedly been refunded. They asked Tesla about this, and Tesla said that doesn't line up with their numbers, but that's this.
Maybe it's like a slightly different percentage,
Yeah,
but they have actually refunded a bunch.
Well, they wouldn't give their number.
Yeah.
So, and this was, I think, as much as 25 or 18% in April alone.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is when they started hitting the wall in terms of getting these things rolled out. So people signed up. I think it was last April?
They announced the third delay.
Yeah, and so they're saying, hey, I signed up a year ago when all the hype was real, and now it's a year later. I want my car. You can't give it to me. Give me my $1,000 back.
Basically, just another reason not to pre-order.
Yeah,
Never pre-order.
It's pre-order culture in the automotive world. What a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Well, what about electric trucks? Can we pre-order some electric trucks from Daimler?
I think most of the time these are purchased by retailers, and yeah, so they almost always do pre-purchase.
The description of this truck sounds like it's just an in-town like delivery vehicle.
Well, that's the little one. So that's the 230-mile one, and then the one in the big picture is the 250-mile one.
Yeah, even 250 miles just doesn't seem like that's enough.
Well, they talked about
For a trucker.
It was for ports and last mile and stuff like that. So I can see one huge advantage of these things being like, if you're delivering in some god-awful place out in the middle of nowhere, you could just have a little generator and a tank of gas in the back, and when you go to sleep, turn on the generator. Get up in the morning.
Well, yeah, if you
Turn
need
on
to,
the
like,
generator
yeah.
and go to sleep forever because of the fumes.
Well, you put it outside, and then somebody steals it.
You wake up and your electric vehicle's just on cinder blocks, and it's like, what happened there?
Or the battery's gone. How did they do it? How did they lift it?
Also, I just heard like a crash out in the hallway. I don't know what that was. One of the interns
That
is going to get a lashing.
That was a door closing.
Yeah, that was just a door.
Was it?
Yeah, it was somebody
sounded like
excitedly
something.
closing a door.
Time for my afternoon potty break, and then just.
Yeah, it's cookie time. It's like raid the thing.
Oh, yeah, it might be snack time actually.
Uber wants to patent a system that knows when you're drunk so that they can change the behavior of the application and or warn your driver.
I love how they're
Determining it, yeah.
slow typing and sloppy typing is one of them.
How your phone tilts when you're walking.
Tilting and walking speed, and also frequency of drops. So if you're dropping your phone all over the place, it's like, oh, that
This
person's drunk.
They're sloppy drunk.
Don't you think it's going to be funny if you're just a naturally clumsy person or bad at typing, and every time you get in the Uber, he's like, oh, having a good night, huh? Yeah, having a good. And you're like, what?
Or it's like 10 a.m. and he's like, "Are you drunk?"
That's just judgment.
I think it'll be more exciting when Uber gets sued by somebody that's got like motor neuron disease or something, and they're
Ooh,
like,
yeah.
the application's constantly classifying me as drunk. I'm tired of this.
But I don't think you don't get discriminated against. It's just so the driver knows.
Well,
you may have been drinking.
The article pointed out something that I didn't think about, that this could be used for predators, like especially if it's like an Uber driver who's a little sketchy, who's like looking for people who are drunk to assault
That was somebody pointed that out immediately, and I was like, "Wow, that's a dark place that my mind didn't even
them.
go."
Go to. And
Yeah.
you're young,
That's
usually go
surprising
straight
for
there.
you. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I could never think about it's like, oh, some drunk ladies want to be picked up. I'll take this one.
That's why you don't get drunk in public.
Speaking of things that should never be, Amazon's warehouse workers say they have been working without air conditioning and experiencing exhaustion and dehydration. So
There's a big asterisk next to this one. Now, I don't for a moment think that Amazon doesn't have horrible warehouse conditions. I think we've seen plenty of evidence for that. But the people making this complaint are doing it because of Ramadan. They're refusing to drink water while working
Oh, they're
in an
fasting.
unair-conditioned Amazon warehouse.
they're also in Egan, Minnesota, which is not exactly known for heat waves.
Usually when you're fasting, you're allowed to drink water,
Yeah.
which is curious.
No, I don't think during the day, I don't think you drink water. Because this guy talked about how he got so dehydrated, surprisingly had to drink some water. He was working in a warehouse. And that was, offensive to God.
The article also said that guy was working through an interpreter. So, again, Egan, Minnesota, interpreter.
Well, like Minnesota is one of the biggest concentrations of Muslims in the United
Which I
States.
didn't realize that.
I
That's
didn't realize
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
But I, as someone who is religious, every fast, it's always said, you can drink water.
But it's supposed to be.
And with Ramadan, I know, like, if you're pregnant, there's exemptions, like if you're old or pregnant or...
But the whole point of that is supposed to be like, it's unpleasant. You're showing your faith and your commitment by dealing with whatever comes and denying yourself these things. So if you work at Amazon, that's just part of it.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's where we're going to get peak engagement this week in the comments, hashing it out over whether or not water is okay during such.
during
I'm sure
fasting.
all
I
those-
don't know how many people in our audience are actually religious, so...
Well, but all of those comments will be very even-keeled and respectful.
Which we've just opened the floodgates now. I'm so sorry to you who enter here.
Except for the one whose thumbnail is just a literal picture made by and for 4chan, and they're going to say terrible things. There goes our
All the anime
monetization.
girl thumbnails.
And the rare Pepe frog and the I
You
don't
keep Pepe out of this. So sad that that's what he represents now.
We also want to report on the whole Dolby. Dolby is messing with stuff. So Dolby is restricting non-native upmixing on Atmos-based products. And so what they're talking about is upmixing like 5.1 channel surround to like 7.1 channel surround. But apparently 2.1 like stereo upmixing to surround is okay.
There were a lot of products mentioned here and a lot of weird rules. But basically it boils down to Dolby wants more control and they don't want third parties using any upmixer except for the one that they create.
Which has
is-
licensing fees.
It's kind of crappy.
Yeah, I don't think that's good for the consumer.
No, definitely not. Apparently Yamaha, was it Yamaha?
Yeah,
Is
Yamaha.
they're the one company and they're like, you can have all the upmixers. It's your choice. And they're the only one left kind of fighting this thing.
Well, so everybody should run out and buy a Yamaha surround system, I guess, to show Yamaha support.
Well, they won't
Is that
be
how
able
this
to.
works?
The future models will not be allowed to do that, I don't think. So
Yeah, it
it could
does-
be an investment.
It does talk about how Aero 3D has a different physical speaker placement than the other surround systems expect, which I'd never thought about before, but apparently it's popular in Europe.
They ruin everything.
Maybe the Euros can weigh in here. Maybe some audiophiles can set us straight on this.
Maybe the same people that are going to talk about the Muslims can weigh in on it.
No, it's a completely different set of people, so we're going to get twice as many engaging comments this week. So it's going to, the
They'll
algorithm
also
is...
complain about our audio. Though, that you can't invite that. We allow no dissent here.
Oh, yeah, you definitely want to hear this in 7.1.
We are working on a 15-year-old stereo Mackie mixer. I'm pretty sure that the audio is as good as it can get out of that mixer.
You want this in 7.1 so you can really hear which direction the air conditioner is coming from.
And the answer is directly behind us, and it is freezing in here.
It's not.
It's not.
Freezing.
No.
Cold.
No.
Somebody's wearing a little dress and she weighs 100 pounds.
I weigh 127. Thank you. which will be relevant later on.
A study again shows pirates tend to be the biggest buyers of legal content. So this motherboard article talks about how people that pirate, they did a survey, and it's just a survey, so I don't know, it's kind of meaningless.
1,000 people.
Yeah,
that's
and
small.
so it's like, hey, do you pirate shows? And it's like, well, yeah, every now and then if I can't find stuff. And it's like, well, do you also subscribe to like Netflix or whatever? And it's like, yeah, I totally do. 91% of the people that pirate stuff also subscribe to a service like Netflix or more than one.
Yeah. I definitely the kind of people who only pirate things are not filling out online surveys. I
Yeah.
promise. I guarantee you that. But I think it just points out that, and this is kind of true because once I got Google Music, and I was like, okay, this is reasonably priced. It's really convenient, and it's all the music I really want. I can upload my own when I really have to. I didn't pirate any more music because
You didn't have
Why
to.
would you?
you
Yeah.
gave me a product that is worth what the cost is and solves my needs.
You don't have Google Music anymore, right? Did that go away?
I don't
with
know.
your
They're doing like
subscription?
the YouTube remix thing, but it's still there. It's still working. So
Speaking of remixes on everything old being new again, the Theranos lady is back.
look
Look
at
at her crazy eyes.
those crazy eyes. Scroll down there. Look at that.
That's the face of a killer.
The headline is, she absolutely has sociopathic tendencies, Elizabeth Holmes.
This is a little incendiary.
It
'cause
is.
The
not,
guy
not
that
just a little.
the guy that wrote this is writing a book about her, so he's trying to sell books. But
Stir up trouble.
it is crazy that the whole Theranos thing, it was absolutely a fraud. I don't think anybody's arguing the otherwise, right?
She has been convicted of fraud, as
Yeah.
a matter of fact.
She promised that she had this technology, and she never did. It never existed. And she is actually supposedly shopping around to try to start a new startup. She's trying to get investors to start another startup.
Well, what idiot would invest in her after?
Powerful female
I
figure.
guess we're finding out. She is beloved, you know.
There are so many other females who are.
Listen, she gets those crazy eyes on you. You don't know what you're doing. Before you know it, you're signing away your life.
She's holding a steak knife at dinner, and it's like, well, I don't know if I want to live.
The article, like, the article starts out really tame though, and then it just peels back layer after layer after
Yeah.
layer, and it's just like the deeper the article goes, the more it's like, wow,
And
how
there,
did she survive?
there was, was it this article that I think was the guy wrote for a major newspaper, and he talked about early in his career, he was going to write about a security issue he found in Macs.
Oh yeah,
And
Jobs called him.
Steve Jobs called him, and like he was going home at the end of the day, and he was like, "Wait, did Steve Jobs just like romance me out of reporting the truth? What power does this man have?" And he talks about these big tech leaders. You know, again, they get the crazy eyes on you, and you just lose control.
The only way to stay away from that is to just not engage with them and refuse to do anything.
You're referencing something else.
McDonald's is making a big bet on cashier-less stores.
I've never used one of these. Have you?
I've never seen this. This is not rolled out here yet.
I have not used this one, but there was a couple places in Taiwan that have this kind of an ordering system, and it actually works really well, especially when you don't speak the language.
It was interesting reading the article because they mentioned that part of what they want is they want people to browse more and to make sort of snap decisions like, oh, I decided I wanted this now, and people don't do that with people. That would be really interesting to try to design for, because usually when I'm designing an interface, I want everything to be as quick as possible.
Well,
So the user doesn't have to think
But
about
they
it.
said that worked, and that makes sense because if there's a line behind me, I'm going to try to make a quick decision. But if I'm just there at a kiosk and I can relax and look through everything, I might buy more.
But how do you balance it being fast and be able to buy more, but also not make it frustrating for the user? Because Panera has something like this with the kiosks, and Panera's kiosk is awful. It's so hard to find anything you want.
well, the place in Taiwan, the secret was that there was a thing like that at the table, and so when it's like there was just a big button that was on screen after you ordered that was like reorder drinks, and you could hit that, and then somebody would come and look at what drinks everybody needed, and it was there. You would have it, and so I could totally see that if there's just always a screen there and it's like, yeah, I could go for a McDonald's milkshake, and you just hit it and it just totally does it.
Yeah.
This is more like, you know, a standing kiosk, but if you have like 20 of those, nobody's going to be waiting.
The other thing about it is, I think people are more confident to do weird orders. Like, I don't want any pickles, and I want extra lettuce, and
I
put
want a bun with mayonnaise on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and whereas the person punching it in is never going to get that right, you can be confident the kiosk will. The kitchen might not, but the kiosk will.
That'd be a fun interface to design. It'd be a lot of work, but it'd be cool.
Which thing do you want from the? I think In-N-Out Burger has a pretty good interface for that, for picking the things that you want to add, because you can add anything and take anything away. So some people have exploited that, I think, to get a burger with no buns and crazy stuff like that.
Oh,
it's
I'm
like,
sure.
It's like cheese meat
That's
sandwich.
the thing. There'd be so many edge cases, and like, I don't know. It'd be a fun project.
The other thing about this is apparently the U.S. is way behind the rest of the world when it comes to cashier-less McDonald's. I guess it's because we've got so many of them. It takes a long time.
Well, they're not really here yet.
And the
I'm sure there are bigger
franchise,
cities.
I guess the franchisees would have to pay for this themselves. So
That's conceivable.
Yeah.
But it's a good step as far as I'm concerned. I wonder, you know how there's this movement that, like, if the cashiers see you using the self-checkout, they give you the skunk eye because it's like, that's my job.
Oh,
Taking my job.
Do you
when I
think
was a
that
cashier, it was not that way.
really? Because I've
Yeah.
heard that recently. Do you think that the McDonald's people feel that way about the kiosks? Because it's definitely replacing them.
I loved it when I worked at a grocery store.
Yeah, but what if you lost your job?
There's always someone manning the U-scan.
The,
You just got to get in ahead of everybody else so that you learn how to man the U-scan better.
Was that a dumpster diver?
I think it was.
Yeah, there's sound. You guys might not have heard it.
The inner city McDonald's, though, is going to be the most entertaining because it's going to be a wall of like vandal-proof touchscreen TVs, and then like a giant metal hopper that you put your food in, and like you can see the worker, but they're behind bulletproof glass, and then they're gonna deposit your bag of Big Macs into the metal drawer and then just like slide it out.
That's not allowed anymore. I think it was in Baltimore. They ruled that was racist.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Putting bulletproof glass, not in a McDonald's, but in a bodega, was insulting to the black community. So I'm sure that if anybody wanted to make a quick buck, they would use that case law and sue McDonald's.
I somehow think that will not stand up once it gets to the Supreme Court,
No,
but I could be wrong.
Well, it hasn't been in the Supreme Court, but they totally, I think it passed one appeal.
Is there some way we can make our next story racist against bees? Because they used a drone to pollinate Central New York apple apple orchard.
Do the bees give you that look when they see the drone? Like, hey, bro, that's my job.
Well,
Can we bring an action on behalf of bees? Because we just need bees.
you guys, I think you're not thinking about how terrifying this could be a bio attack, like against us. Like, because I have bad allergies. What if someone just dumped pollen in our office? It'd be chaos.
How do you harvest pollen to put it in this thing?
I guess you grow flowers and then just like, I don't know, dump the pollen out.
But is flower pollen? You would need apple tree pollen, right?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
So you're going to have to fill some sort of reservoir, a considerable amount of apple tree pollen, right? How do you harvest that?
Some amount of CRISPR. It's like you're just going to synthesize it in a tube, maybe, and just.
Do we have a robot that harvests pollen? Or
Do you have tiny the fluffy bees and then you just squeeze them through a tube so all the pollen comes off their fur?
The bees are gone. That's why we're using these.
Well,
so-
you have to make the robot bees like that one story reported
Okay, so
on.
we're going to have robot bees.
And they're covered in fur. So they collect the pollen.
Just pipe cleaners?
Yeah.
Just wrap a pipe cleaner around? All right.
We've already solved this problem.
But
Pipe cleaner bee.
they've got, I think, 200 acres of apple trees. They did 5. And so they're going to compare, are the drone trees better than the bee trees?
And they did this about 2 weeks ago, so it'll probably be a couple growing seasons, I guess, before we know for sure.
5 years from now, everybody that ate an apple from that orchard has cancer.
Somehow.
But God, they were good apples. So delicious.
They're delicious.
It's
Really
probably
delicious.
fine. It probably won't cause cancer. That's just me making stuff up.
Well, it is natural pollen, as far as
Yeah.
we know.
Yeah.
So I don't think the drone itself is going to introduce cancer. Maybe on purpose.
This Army unit will be the first to test an exoskeleton that lightens combat load. So,
This is cool.
the Army is deploying exoskeletons.
This is just for your lower body, your hips, and your knees. And these guys are like a mountain division, so they're always crawling up and down mountains. So stairs and mountains, if you're carrying a pack, almost all the weight of the pack is held up by this exoskeleton.
That would be amazing.
They didn't talk about the battery life, though. That's what I'm curious about.
Like, yeah, if you're halfway up a mountain and then it just
Yeah,
collapses.
exactly.
Will that be like the next big thing in gear on the Appalachian Trail? Like, I have
Isn't
my
that kinda-
ultralight exoskeleton.
But isn't that kind of defeating the point?
Maybe.
The
I think after a certain point, after you've been hiking for 2 months straight, maybe it's like, man, I could do with an exoskeleton right
The
now.
other problem is this thing is not waterproof yet.
Oh.
So if it starts raining. So the next part of it is like, okay, it's fine in the lab, but when we start getting it dirty and wet, will it work?
I think it would be a lot of fun to go on the Appalachian Trail with like the Boston Dynamics Big Dog, because once you got to West Virginia, they would just shoot it.
I mean, there's probably plenty of chances to get shot way before that. But
I don't know, if I was hiking the trail and I saw that thing coming at me, I might shoot it.
It was coming right for me.
I've played enough Silent Hill. I know what's coming
going
next.
on. Well, imagine like pulling up to a shelter for the night and then like, you get ready to go in and it's like, oh, there's another hiker here. What the hell is that?
Do you think Rue would take on the big dog?
I think she'd be freaked out by it. She doesn't like the vacuum real well. She'll tolerate it, but I can
Oh,
tell it freaks her out a little
That
bit.
was the other thing about the exoskeleton. Apparently it's very loud.
We're doing covert ops.
Yeah, exactly.
The first Nothing Burger story, it's kind of a Nothing Burger, not really, of the nonsense section is MIT scientists have created a psychopath AI by feeding it violent content
I
from
mean,
Reddit.
A+ on whoever picked this
Yeah.
image too, because that looks terrifying.
Pick not related.
Yeah, pick not related. What did you think would happen? It's like, I fed this AI a whole bunch of past chess games and it can't play Go. What did you expect?
I think they didn't say which subreddit they used, but I think it was the people dying subreddit.
Yeah.
Show the table of those
yeah.
Rorschach tests. Yeah.
They're like
those
the
are great.
ink blots or whatever, yeah.
Because you read the one, it's like, oh, that does kind of look like a wedding cake. Wait, man being killed by a speeding driver. What? I don't see that at all.
And then you like stare at it for a while. It's like, I don't.
Yeah, but again, it's like the data set that you used to train it. What did you expect?
And they didn't use any of the comments from Reddit. It was just captions on the pictures. So, yeah.
Here's another one.
The last one's the best one.
Oh yeah, it's like kind of graphic and weird.
Man gets pulled into dough machine. Like, what about that says that? But so I think they were actually just trying to make a point here that,
Trying to make a headline.
because, well, not only that, but, a lot of people are saying that AI is racist. And these guys are saying, hey, AI is not inherently anything. Based on the data that you give it, it becomes what it learns. So there's no such thing as a racist AI. That's ridiculous. There's no such thing as an evil AI.
Yet.
People, on the other hand, are awful.
Both racist and evil, often.
In fact, people are kicking these food delivery robots an early insight into how cruel humans can be to robots.
He's so cute, too. Look at him.
Oh yeah, why would you kick him?
Just,
Unless you like, he's kind of short. Would it be possible that people are not seeing him and stumbling over him?
No.
I don't think so. I think the cameras show that these are malicious kicks.
Yeah,
Why?
because people are dumb.
Just people are angry. I think people would kick cats and dogs if they thought they'd get away with it. Some people.
Yeah.
You ever see the video of the woman in, I think she was in London, and there's a cat, and every day the cat like comes and greets her and she pets it, and one day she just throws it in a recycling bin.
I did see that video.
And
Didn't
it's-
she get charged for animal
Yeah,
cruelty
they
for
found
that?
her because of the CCTVs, and she was like, I was just having a bad day.
What?
The same people that are kicking these robots, I'm telling you, they're out there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But these guys deliver food, which, man, I don't think we could use that here because it's
They would just be gone.
the population density. But yeah, somebody would steal it.
Yeah.
But apparently one guy tried to rip the flag off of one too, because they got a little flag so you don't overlook them. And he attacked it and he couldn't do it because it was made out of some sturdy material.
Merp.
What a weird.
Poor little robots.
People
Yeah.
are terrible.
They got to make them cuter, I guess.
Well, I wouldn't. It's not that I feel bad about kicking a robot, but it's just that's someone's property and like.
And someone's dinner, maybe.
Yeah.
How cool would it be if it had like the LCD screen face with like the eyes and it's all happy and stuff? But then, if you kick it more than 3 or 4 times, it can like spray you in the face with pepper spray and it gets like the angry face.
Well, it's like the best one I've seen of that is the little gizmo robot, and its little expressions are perfect. It just has a little screen for its eyes.
Yeah, no. Deep in the Pentagon, a secret AI program works to find hidden nuclear missiles. Wait, if it's secret, why is there an article about
Yeah, well, and they also announced that I think it just got increased funding. They want to triple the funding.
Yeah.
It was
So
outrageous.
this thing looks for mobile launchers moving around from satellite images and probably monitoring Kim Jong's tweets. And they don't say exactly how it works in all ways, but basically it's just like, hey, there could be a nuke coming from this, and then it alerts somebody. But the one thing they say about it is like, well, if you don't really know exactly how this thing works and you're just some commander in the army and you get the email that's like possible nuke, aren't you going to escalate in the other direction and overcompensate maybe? And like it could lead to nuclear war just because this AI is like, well, maybe, today could be the day.
I think it could be. You remember the Google story? It's like Google is not going to work on AI weapons, and then it is, and then it's not. I think something like this would be perfectly okay for Google to work on. They could use their vast imaging satellite array and whatever else to actually look for things that look like a hidden nuclear site. That seems like that would be okay.
I think there's a lot of false positives on that. Like,
Yeah.
could Ryan's new house one day
Have internet.
have internet and or look like a nuclear missile silo?
Oh, my dream is to live in the missile silos.
Well, but then would
Don't think
somebody
that's gonna happen.
would somebody manipulate the AI? Like we saw the sociopathic AI. It's like, would somebody feed so much bad data to the AI hunting, the AI that's hunting nuclear weapons that it's like, look, in Kim Jong's backyard, this is obviously a nuclear weapon. The AI says it is, even though it was
Or-
fed bad data.
How about you just desensitize it for the day when you're eventually going to attack with nukes, right? Every week, let's drive those launchers, those ICBM launchers along this road and just do that every week.
And then be like, oh, we were just transporting them. Sorry.
I would if I knew that they were spying on me, I would troll them.
Well, let's you feed it false data.
That's how we got Iraq. Missouri governor has signed a revenge porn law just as he is resigning over similar allegations.
It was literally like an hour later. I think that's what they're saying in the article.
Wow.
Well, he's been accused for a while now, but he resigned because it's probably true. Apparently, he took a picture of a woman half dressed. And I don't know if, maybe he wasn't completely serious, but he was like, hey, if this ever gets out, I'm going to show everybody this. And if you're a governor,
You
can't do that.
Well, technically, you should never do that ever.
Well, that's
But
true.
especially if you're a
Yeah.
governor.
So he didn't. It's funny because they linked to his Facebook posts where he made a Facebook post and it was like, "Here's all the great things I've done, and I love you all, and it's been great." He did not mention anything about the revenge porn.
By the way,
But he did champion that new law. He also did a bunch of pardons and made a lot of changes on his way out.
Why is it true that a lot of the politicians that champion things are themselves guilty of whatever it is they're trying to stop?
Oh, that's the classic, why are all the televangelists eventually found in a hotel room with an underage boy? It's, you preach against the thing that you are because you're projecting that onto the rest of the world.
So true. So true. This man from Chile has bought a cell phone with 58 kilos of avocados.
now, if you're American, you're like, how much is 58 kilos? It turns out that's about how much I weigh. So it's one Krista worth of avocados for a cell phone.
Imagine a man taking Krista's dead body into a phone
Filled
store
with avocados.
and throw it onto the table and say, give me a phone.
Did he at least get a good phone? Because I couldn't figure out what
Yeah,
he
I can't
got.
tell what he
Well, they
picture.
said the avocados, they went up to about $8 a pound. So I guess that was like $350, $375 phone.
Well, hopefully he got his money's worth. Good on him.
Yeah,
Good story.
it's for some reason in that country, they're doing this promotion where everything is priced in the local currency and also in avocados. And it was a joke, I think, but that guy was like, hey, I have a lot of avocados. And so they accepted it.
Nice. If you're in Australia, your internet sucks. We always make fun of it. There's a few places in Australia where your internet doesn't suck, but by and large, like America, it's like, unless you're in New York, well, even the internet really sucks in New York too. There's only some places in America. It can't
I
be
think-
too big or too small.
Seems like
Random
the
places.
middle of America tends to have the best internet, where everything's flat and they've got all the
You need to watch out for
utilities.
tornadoes, but
Because it was built later on,
Yeah.
and yeah.
But like New York City's internet is god awful price for performance, and Most of the major cities really have terrible internet unless it's like commercial internet, and then you pay through the nose for it.
We've got okay internet if you're in the city limits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely just okay. It stagnated for a while though, because before, when it was like Adelphia was doing lots of upgrades, and then those guys had that accounting scandal thing, and then for 5 years it did
Adelphia?
not improve at all. In fact, it regressed slightly. They took away some of the higher end.
The important part is way better than Australia.
Way better than Australia.
Oh my
that's what
God, so
matters.
much better.
Yeah, so the National Broadband Network chief has blamed online gamers predominantly for fixed wireless congestion. We're just pointing out, fixed wireless is a scam. It's a meme. It's not even a real thing. The reason fixed wireless is awful is because everybody shares the wireless spectrum, and it's a lot of people.
And this guy actually sort of understood that, but rather than put the blame where it belongs, which is everybody using the video services, he blamed gamers. And there was like this one plucky reporter who just kept going after him. And he basically did kind of walk it back towards the end. Also, gaming on wireless.
You poor souls.
Yeah.
Wireless is so wildly inconsistent and terrible. Like, fixed wireless is not an option, period. Like, no fixed wireless technology is anywhere remotely as good as a wired connection. And if you ran fiber optics, that's a 100-year infrastructure. There's no way around it.
They apparently they've got a 75 gigabytes a month cap on their satellite internet, and now they are proposing the same for the fixed wireless for this very reason. And during peak times, they might throttle you down to almost nothing if you're gaming or streaming video.
Yeah, the wireless. There's not enough wireless bandwidth to do much of anything except email and non-latency sensitive applications for sure. So.
Sorry, Australians.
This dancing doctor has gotten in trouble for dancing in video on the internet, but apparently patients asked for that.
I don't believe that for a second. Have you seen these videos?
No, I did not.
They're pretty wild.
Oh my God! You
like
gotta
she'll
watch.
get the nurses in on it too. Like,
Yeah. So the video is always an unconscious patient who is under anesthetics, and her just like dancing around him with a scalpel. And my description of
sometimes
it.
other costumes.
You
too.
think my description sounds crazy? Yeah. And she's like, sometimes she'll adapt the lyrics of the song to match the part of the body she's cutting on. And one of them, she's like bouncing to the beat, and she's got a handful of fat, and then she's like starts going in and cutting it. She has 7 or 8 malpractice suits against her.
Woo.
And a lot of these people are like, I'm afraid to go outside. She turned me into a monster. She was barely licensed to do this. She definitely wasn't licensed to perform anesthesia in the building she was in.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't read that part.
some people have woken up. One woman woke up with a sandwich in her hand. It's like you can't. The insanity of this. So everything she's saying about like, no, these people wanted it. The patients are not backing that up at all. And this is just an insane woman. And she was very cheap. And she did like contests where you got free stuff.
Ooh.
One of the women who's in one of these videos won the contest.
Oh.
And so she didn't even know she was in the video till much later.
She's basically the doctor from TF2. And that's how I lost my medical license.
But you got to, I don't know, those videos have been taken down from YouTube. I think maybe like Live Leak or someplace still had them.
They're still up, yeah. I
And
found them.
you should watch them because, wow.
Yeah, the descriptions in the article don't do that
Justice at all.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's way like at first you're like, okay, I would actually kind of be okay if a surgeon, as long as they're not like jamming out, but like they're listening to music, I don't really care.
And I think,
But if they're like sitting here like hacking away at me to the
no,
beat,
yeah. And they,
which is what she's doing.
they pixelate it, but these people, like, a lot of times the surgery's on their ass or something, and they're just face down with their ass out on the table. And I think one person actually died on the table.
Oh.
And she obviously didn't release that video, but
I've seen videos like that. What I was thinking of when I was reading this was like, there's a dentist that has videos like that, but the patients are basically awake, but they've usually got some
Yeah,
sort of hilarious thing going on with their mouth, and so it's like if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. It's like clunk clunk.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For dental work, you're usually not under. So
also that woman's name is Boutte. That's
I also know
legitimate.
Dr. Boutte.
IKEA wants in on the esports market, and so they've got a new furniture line for people that are going to sit and play games
Speaking of
17
keeping
hours a day.
your boutte safe.
You know,
There's no photos of this yet.
computer chairs were actually kind of big at Computex. There was a lot of like, just like the Dr. Evil style, wingback computer chairs, and I don't. Why is that a thing?
Well, because
you game better. I would get to Diamond in Overwatch if I had a game chair.
if only. They talk about how these are going to be like, they're going to measure you, and you're going to get a chair that is like your esports chair. But you talked about how a lot of the sponsorship was being pulled from YouTubers and going to the esports teams. Mm-hmm. I think, for hardware type stuff, I think they're trying to just get on board that same train. Because you think about the sponsorship dollars in regular sports it's insane. People will buy your shoes if a certain athlete wears them. So if a certain esporter, do we call them athletes? What do we call them?
I don't know.
But if there's and you've seen Twitch streamers have sold a lot of what is that chair called?
Twitch Leads.
Oh no, there's
the
like
racer,
a
DX Racer.
The racer chair. My God, the racer people put that chair in every big Twitch streamer's house.
Yeah, we've been invited to sponsor that, and I usually reply with links to. It's like, I have Steelcase. Here's my Steelcase Leap chair, and I never hear from them again.
But I think it'll work.
Yeah,
people will buy IKEA furniture because who's the hottest Overwatch player, Krista?
I personally like Gaguri. She's a Korean player.
Of course. How could I forget Gaguri?
She's learning English, and like everyone on her Discord is just sending her memes all the time. So she's posting all these like half Korean, half English memes on her Twitter. They're really funny. Anyway, I actually have an IKEA chair for my desk chair at
but
home.
it's not an esports
It's not
chair.
an esports chair. No, it's just a white office chair.
You know what's coming? The next update from Google, they're updating the emojis.
One, at least.
At least one. Well, more than
This is the most important story we have this week.
more than one. But British egg producers are upset, and you'll never guess why.
You'll never guess.
This is like one of those find the difference pictures
This was pretty obvious.
when you're
I
a
think.
kid.
Why did somebody I don't understand. Why would
Well,
somebody?
you didn't read the tweet. The egg was removed so as not to offend vegans.
Oh yeah, I didn't read the tweet. I totally missed the vegan
tweet.
part of it.
Yeah.
So people thought this was a joke because it's so ridiculous. But it turns out it's real, and this woman really is like a diversity employee at Google. And she's really proud of taking the egg out of the salad.
Some poor graphic designer was like had 20 other deadlines that day, and it was like push this to the top of the list.
I
It's
don't
like,
think
really?
it was too difficult to do. I mean, just like crop out the
and then change the green.
fill
I
in
mean,
with
you
the
have to like
green.
re-illustrate a part of it probably, but that's time I could be spent elsewhere.
But
during the
yeah,
day.
taking an egg out of the salad because vegans might be offended, that's illustrative of everything that's wrong with the world right now.
How long until we have people that are only like, I will only drink plant or like fungus-based soylent. Like, I will only get my sustenance from
Mushroom
some type
water.
of.
Are fungus a lesser class than chlorophyll plants?
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
They're
Well,
they're obviously low-class citizens.
You missed yesterday when we talked about the poop emoji.
Oh yeah,
And
how that's hate speech.
the poop emoji could be considered hate speech in some ways, and Facebook has an internal document to tell you when the poop emoji might be hate speech.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of hate speech and emojis, Scots are welcoming the arrival of new ginger emoji with this emoji update. So we'll check that out.
I mean, it's stupid, but I also I used to wonder, like, why don't they have a redheaded emoji?
You know,
And now they do.
that's one of those things I've never wondered about. Also,
Well,
like, do we really have people that have
got offended by
that dark of a complexion
With red hair.
and
I guess
red
if you
hair?
dyed it, you could dye it that color.
What? Do we have blue hair emojis?
I don't, you know
What about Twitch streamers?
The Twitch streamer emoji.
What about Stacy?
Yeah, Stacy's back here, and she needs an emote. How else?
If you guys are going to comment about Stacy, make sure that you spell it correctly, Krista.
It's I saw her. I discovered her in the storage closet here at the office, and I was like, "Hey, would you like a modeling contract with Level1 Techs?" And she was like, "I have to ask my agent." But she's here now, and yeah, she's Stacy with an I because her agent told her that that would push her brand to the next level.
And that's
I agree.
she goes by one name.
Just Stacy.
Yeah.
Stacy. Just Stacy with an I?
Just Stacy.
Stacy with an I?
STACI.
STACI.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That makes more sense. The last NASA scientist to work on Nazi rockets has died. So, turns out, the end of World War II, we were like, hey, all you smart people, we can just look over that whole Nazi thing if you come to work for us.
Hey, you know what? We can forgive war crimes. So
We're the winning side.
This guy worked under von Braun, who famously came up with V2 rockets, which, you know, he dropped on Europe. That was a bad time for some people. So we forgave that, and we brought him over here. And this guy actually, I knew that a lot of those guys ended up at NASA, but this guy worked on our military rocket project first. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey, you Nazis, here's this top secret rocket information we've got. Why don't you work on it for us for a while?
This guy was 104 years old, too.
Yeah. I think it was probably a little easier to keep things secret back then. It's not like he could just, log on and it's like, Dear China, have a plan.
Well, and he was probably in fear for his life pretty badly in the beginning. So it's like, oh, yeah, I don't have to go to Nuremberg. I'll do whatever you want. But the crazy thing about it, he talked about, obviously, people knew. And so he said when he first went to NASA, there were some Jewish people who were very upset about him being there. But they all kind of came around. Like, he seemed like a very agreeable guy. Everybody loved him.
Well, or maybe the people who didn't agree with him are already dead.
Maybe.
Not because he did anything to them, but just because, he's ancient.
But yeah, he eventually worked on the moon rockets. We went to the moon on some
Nazi technology.
Not super modified V2s. I mean, we basically flew up there on the wings of the Third Reich.
There goes their session. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, now is a better time than ever. We have a Patreon and just such an event that you could join and hear more terrible, terrible jokes.
I don't know if they get much worse than that. We do have a podcast.
We do have a podcast. We could break out the wine for the podcast. Maybe that might be.
Don't make that promise because I'll never stop asking.
Yeah,
it's a very special occasion. That turned out well though. There are scooters. So there's this scooter loan program, and these scooters have a speaker in them that's saying, "Unlock me, or I'll call the police."
It's if you just play with the scooter.
Yeah,
Like
1
if you
minute.
haven't paid for it.
If you're standing on it, I guess there's a weight sensor, or you're pushing buttons for 1 minute without using your app or paying, it will begin to scream.
I wish it just screamed. Like, it didn't yell anything. It just was like...
Now, this is another one where everybody's outraged because they're like, this is offensive to black people. And it's like, whoa, hang on there. Aren't you, by saying that, presuming that only black people steal scooters? Like, talk about some weird layered racism there.
Yeah. I mean, it is horrible. Apparently, it doesn't stop screaming for a long time either. So people will just immediately run away.
Well, they talked about, what is this, The Guardian? They sent a reporter, and the reporter said that they just banged on one for 10 minutes, and that's as long as they could stand it because it never stopped screaming. But it did not, in fact, call the police.
Yeah, it never had that functionality. It was just saying it to scare you.
Wow. So that means they're all going to be disappeared tomorrow, right?
Props to that reporter. They're committed to journalism.
Yeah, that's some actual good journalism in the days of, just reading off a prompter.
Yeah.
I think that's the same company that does the green bikes, and those things are everywhere, even around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just littered everywhere.
Speaking of us reading off of prompters, let's go on to the next story.
Apple Watch. You remember the gold-plated... Well, okay, to be fair, first-gen Apple Watches are all obsolete.
Yeah.
That's a non-story.
But it's an Apple product, right? So you expect that.
Expect it, yeah.
But you might not expect that if you bought the $10,000 version.
Yeah, you think Apple could at least throw in a free current version of the smartwatch? To
Maybe
be like, here you go.
Maybe you keep the band and they just switch the
face.
Yeah,
it's an expensive upgrade.
But I remember when this came out, I don't know if we were doing the news back then, but I remember us making fun of this because it's only worth $10,000, but a lot of people paid $17,000 because it was those first. Remember when people used to stand in line for Apple products and like overpay on the first day?
Yeah.
Almost double the price, and it's already obsolete.
It's still worth about $10,000 in raw gold if you can find somebody that's willing to give you what the gold is worth. Theoretically.
Cash for gold.
Take my Apple Watch.
The cash for gold people are going to be like, I don't know, $500? It's worth $500.
They're worse than that the pawn shop TV
On the
show.
TV, yeah. I can give you $3 for this.
Also going on simultaneously with Computex was the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference. And pretty much, I mean, of course, no new hardware was announced because they don't do that.
Yeah.
It's just software. But the Emoji is getting tongue detection, and I can't even believe we're talking about this.
This is, honestly, this is the most important update of 2018.
For Apple users, maybe.
Look at the size. I imagine those are projectors, but think about how much work went into that so they could display these stupid pictures.
Why is the robot's tongue so much larger than the alien's tongue?
Because alien tongues are small. Everybody knows that.
But the robot tongue is larger than the unicorn. And horses have huge tongues.
Maybe it's depending on how far the person who took that photo stuck.
I don't think that they have different emotes to account for the size of the person's tongue. But we should point out that the only feature that this does is you stick your tongue out and it auto puts the tongue out emoji.
Yeah. You can also do me-mojis now, where you can make
yourself like the Wii, the Me.
Yeah, and
which,
so I guess because these are all vector, it takes less network bandwidth to send a picture of these, or it can manipulate it in 3D or whatever. So you can, it's like, let me film my reaction here.
Well, here's the most important question: can I make my me-moji an anime girl?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Probably,
you can customize it however you want.
Yeah.
Hilariously, the me-moji doesn't you should be able to take a picture of yourself and through AI
get it close, and then you could update it from there. But no,
it doesn't do that. It doesn't do that at all. Because I was like, wow, Apple's got some impressive
That's
AI
pretty cool,
here.
yeah.
Where
listen,
it doesn't do that.
Isn't character creation the most exciting part of the game?
I don't want to be myself. I want to be Commander Data.
Yeah.
the other big update at that conference was dark mode, and that's it. Literally it. Good job, Apple.
Can you imagine that you're a reporter and you have to go to that, and you're sitting you're 30 minutes into the tongue out emoji?
Oh my gosh, no. So obviously we follow
That's the point where I would reevaluate my career choices.
We follow other tech tubers on Twitter, and I was looking at Twitter when all that stuff was being announced, and it was just a constant stream of, oh look, memojis, oh look, tongue emoji, and it was just everybody tweeting about it all at once.
That was like me at the Intel press conference during Computex, because it was literally okay, but who would care? Okay, but and then they talked about
these people were very into it.
Intel was talking about how AI will make the computing experience better because the AI will take away the shit you don't care about and give you more of the shit that you do. And it's but then they didn't explain how it was going to do that. And then by the end, when the guy I think it was Brian Crescent, I don't know, I can't remember now, jet lagged, but the speaker was basically saying toward the end, yeah, and here's the plan that we're going to do that. Oh, it's our Intel developer program. We want people to sign up to be developers with us so they can figure out how to do that. Yeah, and so it's just what?
Turn off your ad blocker, and then you can see this content.
Well, it's worked so well for Microsoft and Tesla. Just let the users test it. Figure it out. Send us a report once you run into something.
Yeah, once you figure out a way that you can use our Intel products to make the world a better place by doing something we can't figure out, then yeah, we'll all make money together. So,
except you won't make any money.
Intel's going to make all the money. Nothing screams fashion like these luxury Crocs with built-in tube socks. Okay, so I have to find the picture. Yes. Wait.
No, there's a picture.
No, there we go.
There you go. Yeah, that's the one you want.
How do you wash those socks?
Don't worry about that. Ryan asked me, we were at lunch, and he was like, how does this relate to tech? And I was like, well, we can say it's a design story. We considered saving it for the podcast, but it's so much better with pictures, with an image, so you can see.
I didn't realize that Crocs had writing on them now, too. It's like the girls with the writing on their butt.
Juicy on your Crocs.
But they won't be juicy now that you got the built-in socks because they'll absorb all of your foot sweat.
But then every time you take a step, it's just going to ooze out.
Is there some piece of technology like the auto lacing Nikes from the Back to the Future movie? It's like your Crocs are now dry.
Ugh.
I kind of doubt it.
I'll be honest. I had a pair of like knockoff Crocs when I was in high school.
Oh, knockoff. Did the other kids make fun of you?
Well, I only wore them to work because they were actually comfortable to stand in for like 8 hours.
Are they really comfortable?
Yeah, they're not bad.
Would you, let's say somebody gave you a pair of the ones with socks, would you wear them?
To work a retail job, sure. Because
What?
I always had long pants on anyway. You wouldn't have seen them.
What problem exactly does the built-in socks solve?
Yeah, that's a good. It seems like
Yeah.
regular socks are way more versatile.
Well, I mean, it's the same question you could pose toward like toe socks. Like, what problem does that
Well,
solve?
no, see, okay. So if you wanted to wear toe socks with these Crocs, you could. If you want like the thick, luxuriant, like alpaca wool
Well, yeah.
socks, you could wear that. If you want like the thin, breathable socks, you could totally do that. If you want like the athletic socks that are going to give you some arch support and some support around your ankles, you could wear those. But it just seems like having a Croc with a built-in sock just limits your options.
Yeah, what if you want to put on like a black sock to go to a fancy function?
Yeah.
If you're going out to dinner with your girlfriend. Oh, wait.
Or the toe socks. I mean, maybe you need an individual sock for each individual toe because you don't like your toes touching. I mean, that's a thing.
Oh, that's a perfect excuse for that. I've actually seen people say that like the toe socks, and they're not really socks, they're like a thin shoe, is because that's for climbing and dexterity. Because you can wrap your toes
they make
around.
actual socks that aren't. They're not. I know what you're talking about. Vibrams or something like that. Those are shoes. Like there are actual just socks, like just cotton socks that have toes in them. And I'm not really sure why. My cousin loves them. She's mad because you can't find them easily anymore.
This is too much nonsense even for level 1.
We maxed out the nonsense this
We
week.
did. We had a lot of nonsense stories.
We
Oh,
turned it
wow.
up to 11.
This has been another hour. So this week they got like 2:35 total
Wow.
news time.
That's not a record,
What
but
a
it's up there.
bonus.
It is up there.
So if you enjoyed all that extra content, be sure to join the Patreon. And also, they got lots of for the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've managed 6 or 7 videos a week. So if YouTube hasn't given you the notifications, you should go back and rewatch all those.
Yeah, I definitely don't think anybody's getting any notifications.
Yeah.